Riding their dead horses, hunting with their packs of pale spiders big as hounds. It's your host, Sir Duncan the Fearsome, and Lady Rachel of House Fox. You're listening to Game of Microphones.
Well met, giant killers and honorable warriors, and welcome to Game of Microphones. The warm sun of this dawn is welcome, for the night is dark and full of terrors. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, soldier of life.
And I'm Princess Sarah of House Von Daltrin, the guardian of Prince Jackson's realm.
Oh, nice. And this is episode 114.
On this episode, we're covering Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us, Princess Sarah. Rachel was unavailable this week, so I managed to find some excellent female talent to bring in to fill out the X chromosomes for the show.
Woot woot, I'm an X chromosome. I'll take that as a compliment.
And in case you're not already aware, this series rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 8, Episode 3. If not, there's still time to be vaporized by the blue flames pouring out from the half-destroyed face of a berserking undead dragon powered by necromancy, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
That was nice.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Oh, man, The Long Night is here. Is this possibly the most anticipated episode of television of all time?
I think so. I think I'm like bummed out that it came and went, but just watching it again, the feeling that I had was still the same. Like I was still so pumped up, even to watch it a second time. Yeah. Because it was just, it had so much emotion. I had the same feelings about it. But yeah, I have never seen an episode talked about this much.
Yeah, the intensity factor was just off the charts the whole time for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Should we start with your number 3?
Sure. So my number 3 was just the heroic deaths.
Oh, man.
Everyone died a hero.
Pretty much.
Which is sort of not always in Game of Thrones style. So it was kind of like, I'll take it.
Yeah, good to see for a change.
Mm-hmm. We had Ed. He died saving Sam. Lyanna died keeping the giant from the rest of everyone, basically, guarding the gate. Beric died saving Arya.
Yep. And the Hound, he died saving both of them.
Right.
I think that's a key factor that's like kind of like been overlooked a little, is that not only did he save Arya, he helped save the Hound too.
He got the Hound snapped back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Theon died trying to save Bran, kind of.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And of course, Jorah died. That's probably the one that hit me the hardest. Saving Sansa. Saving Dany.
Yeah, that was so hardcore. He was defending her from his knees at one point, swinging his sword all around. And
it was just, he was all in at that point. It's like he knew it was coming. And when rewatching it and seeing the look on his face is just like, this is what I got to do. This is, my purpose.
Everything's been leading up to this moment.
Yeah.
Totally.
And just so well acted too. All of them. It looked like they knew they were going out.
There was one moment where, what is it? The dragons come flying through and start torching everything or something. I can't remember exactly which moment it is. We'll get to it in the notes at some point, but it shows all these people reacting to the dragons arriving for the fight, basically, and it cuts to Dolores, Ed, and Sam, and Ed smiles. And I was like, oh, fuck, he's dead. Dolores Ed can't smile, you know? The world is ending if Dolores Ed smiles, you know?
It's so true, though. You're like, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, because he's just constantly Dolores. You know, that's his thing. If he's not Dolores, then... Yeah, so I thought that was kind of funny.
There was a lot of people that it seemed like they gave a lot of signals that a lot of the characters could possibly die. Like a lot of little things where you're like, oh no, that doesn't look good for that guy. Mm-hmm. But then we didn't lose as many as I thought. That sounds kind of...
I know. I was, sad. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm disappointed that we didn't lose more people, but I'm almost like kind of disappointed that they didn't hurt us more than they did. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting to be like really, really suffering as a result of this episode.
Well, we kept hearing like it's going to be Red Wedding status, and Red Wedding was like shocking. Like it was it was jarring. Like couldn't stop. I still get emotional over that freaking episode.
Mm-hmm, totally.
And so this was kind of like, it was appropriate death. Like we're okay. We don't like that they died, but we're okay with it because they died as heroes.
Right. Definitely.
Whereas the Red Wedding, it was like, meh.
Oh my God. Just, yeah, that was so brutal.
Massacre.
Totally. What is it? Yeah, it's partially based on the Glencoe massacre, I think. Makes sense.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's good that way.
Yeah.
Good at drawing from.
Yeah, there's all kinds of amazing parallels. Anything else you want to add about all the noble deaths in this episode?
Nope. Just goodbye and salute.
All right. So my number 3 is the Dothraki Charge.
Oh,
a dragon for a dragon, because I make an astrological comparison at some point in this point with something called a dragon, which is seen in outer space, called a double radio source active galactic nuclei. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Why don't we just start right off at the beginning of the episode, since it sort of all leads into the charge here.
Sounds good to me.
So the episode starts off with Samwell looking at his hands, shaking in the cold, and somebody hands him a dagger, and it's like, come on, dude, like, wake up, basically. And then he starts walking along, and it cuts to Tyrion, and we get all these characters walking through the courtyard. We see Tyrion walking through, and he's looking at these barricades, which are built, they look like the big X-shaped structures on the beach at Normandy on D-Day, blocking all the World War II Allied forces from being able to storm the beach. And then we see all the dragon glass sticking out all over them, shards and spikes, which is really cool. We know it's like a combination of the D-Day traps and the spike traps from Walking Dead, which I thought was kind of cool. You know, how the zombies will just impale themselves on the spikes and be stuck there. This is kind of similar.
Just stick there?
Yeah, in this case, the zombies impale themselves on the spikes, but then they just like die and disintegrate, basically. So I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, how similar they were. So Tyrion's walking around and he grabs his big old knapsack and his bag of his thing of wine, his wineskin, to head down to the crypt. And Lyanna is already taking charge and directing people how to get the area set up. And we get a cool shot of the broken tower as the camera pans upwards, and we start to get like a vantage shot out over the walls of Winterfell. And this section, I know Rachel always talks about how she likes, in a lot of cases, the scenes that don't have a lot of dialogue on this show. Because they often are very impactful, even without having a lot of dialogue. And I would say this is one of those scenes. There's not a lot of dialogue, even throughout this whole episode. Like the scripts that we're looking at are even really short in this case. But there's a lot of wordless stuff, but a lot of really good tension and everything that's built up. And
what makes you pay attention so much closer when there's no dialogue. You're just like, okay,
you're like
putting it together in your head.
Yeah, I got to watch visually and determine what's going on. Yeah, exactly. So Davos is approaching the front of the wall to look out down over everything. And we see Sansa standing with Arya, and Sansa looks scared. She looks freaked out, just looking out into the darkness in the moonlit night, knowing the army of the dead is right out there about to storm your castle. It's horrible.
Totally.
So we get a bunch of really cool shots of the Unsullied in perfect still formation, giving us an idea of just how many of them there are and how like powerful and disciplined they are. Just a really impressive sight to behold. And we see the catapults. The catapults and the wildlings, and Brienne and Jaime are side by side, which is awesome. You get Grey Worm and Tormund and everybody, and the Hound moves to the front of the line with Gendry in anticipation for the battle to start. It's so epic. And then out of nowhere, the dragons come flying down over the top of Sansa and everybody. And there's like a moment of like, oh, like we at least we have that on our side, you know? And everybody's watching the dragons flying around. And this is when Sam appears next to Dolorous Ed. and previously, Dolorous Ed had been kind of shitting all over Sam, remember? Tossing him a lot of shade last episode, like, oh, like, if you're fighting with us, then the world's really fucked. You know, we're really desperate if you're going to be there with us. You'd be, you know, you wouldn't be good on the field. Like, you should go down to the crypts. You're a liability, right? And so we thought that with his first line here, oh, for fuck's sake, you know, we thought he was continuing his bitching about Sam. But then he changes it up. You took your time, you know, and we realized that he deals with stress by being sarcastic, and that he was just you know, busting Sam's balls basically, and he is really happy that Sam is here. Although it's too bad he wasn't a little more serious, because Sam being a liability is what gets him killed coming up. Yep. He, you know, Sam is like on the ground, frozen like the Hound basically. Remember, and Ed's like, get up, you know, and spends just too much time having to watch out for Sam, and it gets him killed. So that's really sad that his apprehension about fighting with Sam was, you know, well-founded, you could say.
Well, and they stop for a second and they're looking at each other, and I was like, he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, never do that. They baited us with Jaime, because Brienne gets knocked over like right off the bat in the fight. You know, the whites are just pouring all over, and she always has the most like animalistic, guttural, like growling and battle cries and stuff. It's so epic. Yeah. So she's like, gets knocked down, and the whites are all over, and Jaime slays him, and like he's kind of standing there for a second, like looking down, like, yeah, you know, I helped you. And I'm thinking, no, they're about to kill Jaime. But nope, they did the same thing with Ed and killed him instead. They did that like a bunch, like tricking us and making it seem like something's going to happen. And yeah, definitely. So this is when it pans over and we see Jorah, and Ghost is by Jorah's side, which was interesting. Riding into battle with Jorah, thought that was kind of cool. It's also sad that Ghost never really gets to be by Jon's side anymore. You know, he's with Rhaegal, at least during the battle. I mean, there's probably all kinds of stuff that we don't see off screen where Jon is with Ghost, just like when they're in Winterfell in general, but
right.
It sucks we don't get to see that. And a lone rider approaches the army. And even the farthest person away who can see it, Davos, up on the wall, past all the army and everything, he's looking down like he knows it's Melisandre already. Like, I don't know, he's fixated in on it. It's like
that sense. Yeah,
his ears like perk up and he's pointed, you know, down at Melisandre, even without knowing that it's her. Upon first watch, when I was first watching it, I thought it was a White Walker riding out, like we've seen them do so many times. One White Walker on a horse riding out in front of the crowd before all the undead come out, you know, kind of leading the charge. So I was like, oh God, it's beginning. But nope, it's a shadowy figure who ends up being Melisandre. And has she interacted with Jorah before? Or is this the first time?
I think this is the first time, because he's always been, I think this is the first time.
Yeah, I think so. Because he doesn't seem to know who she is, and she doesn't seem to know too much about him. I mean, if they'd met before, she probably would have known that he speaks Dothraki, right? Because everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so do you speak their tongue? And Jorah kind of hesitates at first. He says, yeah. And she's like, tell them to lift their swords. And this is what makes Jorah hesitate. But in the distance, you can hear the hissing and growling of the dead. And I think he's like, because without approval from Dany, having a stranger do something to the unsullied forces is fucking risky. You don't know what she's going to do, what her intent is, who this person is.
This girl just came out of the darkness. Right. And she's just like, tell them. Giving me orders.
Yeah. Tell him to give the army orders. And so he hesitates, but then he hears the dead, and I think he figures like, fuck it, what do I have to lose at this point? Like, go for it. Whatever you're thinking, give it a try.
Yeah, he's like, let's see how this plays out here.
Yeah. So she goes over and grips her hand on the arak and starts chanting in High Valyrian. And Jorah, I think, is kind of surprised that what's happening, because he sort of reacts like he's curious, looking over at her. This person comes out of the darkness, like you said, and starts chanting in High Valyrian, and all of a sudden, all the Dothraki blades just ignite in spectacular fashion. And we get this amazing music as all across the screen, off in the distance, the blades light up and just roar around the circumference of Winterfell, and everybody on the battlements, and everybody starts smiling, because it's just like a light in the darkness, a hope that we didn't have beforehand. That the whites are vulnerable to fire, so it's like this huge confidence boost to everybody. It's like it just lifted morale with that simple action by Melisandre so much, and I wasn't expecting that. When all those blades lit up, I was like, oh my fucking god, this is the coolest shit ever, dude.
Yeah, we're getting started now. I thought she was saying like some kind of prayer or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Makes perfect sense.
She's wishing them luck.
Yeah, but in retrospect, she's the Red Woman. She fire is her thing, right? So she would set Stannis's blade ablaze as well. So it makes perfect sense, and it was just so fucking cool. And so I was surprised that the Dothraki didn't freak out when their blades went ablaze, because they seem to have had a negative impression of witchcraft, even as far back as season 1, when they were distrustful of Mirri Maz-Dur. And it ended up, Dany allowed her to do her witchcraft, and it resulted in Khal Drogo's death, right? So it was surprising to me that they didn't all freak out with this new magi, setting all their blades ablaze, you know what I mean?
They looked a little confused, but they didn't flip out. Yeah. So they're cool about it, surprisingly. And she sort of rides past the first ranks of Dothraki and starts crossing in front of the Unsullied. And we'd seen Grey Worm's reaction when all those blades went ablaze, and he looked impressed. He thought, he was like, yes, this is what we need, And let's just say it, Grey Worm is fucking epic this episode. Holy shit. Everybody's freaking out. Grey Worm keeps his composure the whole time. So badass, dude. He does.
Oh my God.
Quick thinking too. That's my number 2, so we won't go into it.
Yeah. All right. So, actually, first, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the moment where we get everybody's reactions, and they have the hopeful looks. It's not when the dragons come in, it's when the blades light up and Ed smiles. And I was like, fuck, he's a goner. And Jorah looks excited, and he nods at the Red Woman thank you, great job, great work, right? And draws his own blade, Heartsbane. And I was thinking, oh man, he wants his blade to be lit on fire too.
I thought the same thing. I was
he's like, oh, I feel left out, So that was cool. And then this is when Melisandre rides past the Dothraki and ends up in front of the Unsullied and Grey Worm. And I think she sees that Grey Worm is impressed with her, and she looks down at him and says, Valar Morghulis, and he responds in typical fashion.
Yep. Valar Dohaeris.
Yeah. So cool. Just a really neat interaction between the two of them. I like that.
Very quick, but it's so much emotion in it.
Yeah.
And just the tiniest things.
So epic, dude. So epic. So epic. And not only it has some other implications, because everybody whose blade got lit basically dies real quick You know, so she could be saying like, all those motherfuckers must die. You know, like all those guys. Yeah. Dothraki, Morghulis. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to die. And
I want that on a t-shirt.
So she starts riding up towards the gates of Winterfell, and Davos is like, open the gate. He knows who it is. And he's like, oh, like, let her in. I want at her. Right. So she comes in and starts walking right to him. Like they meet right in the middle, and they both stop and look at each other. And holy shit, what did you think about this moment? Because she had said it beforehand to Varys. She'd said, you know, I will die in Westeros just as you will, right?
Well, it just seemed like the look on her face was very, hold your horses, dude. Like, right. I know what's going on here. I know what we're both thinking. Just chill.
Yeah, but like, I'm going to be dead before morning anyway, so there's no reason to kill me, right? Very interesting. And I was surprised he actually stood down. He seemed kind of like taken aback by that, and it kind of like turns to the side.
Well, he's like, that kind of ruined my momentum.
Yeah, guilt tripping me. And so she walks a few steps forward and through a window gets a glimpse. I said that in another podcast too. Glamps.
Good old glampses.
Gets a glimpse of Arya through the crenellations in a window, and they have this epic, you know, stare down between the two of them where they both recognize each other, and they're both like, oh my God, there they are. You know, so cool. And we'll get more of that later as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, watching it the second time and you know what's going on, it's like, oh God, it's so powerful.
Yeah, and knowing what happens later, I took note that the Game of Thrones theme song starts to swell under Arya.
I did too.
You noticed that too?
Yeah, and it's like happy sounding.
Yeah, really happy. And then it cuts away from Arya to the army again, and immediately the Game of Thrones theme continues to play, but it goes minor and gets really like off-putting and creepy sounding. It was a really cool rendition of that song. I liked it a lot. And it
was like super fast-paced too. It was like
dun, 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 dun,
a lot of energy in it.
Yeah, and so I was thinking, Melisandre probably never realized that Arya and Jon Snow were connected before. You know, like she ran into Arya when she was at the cave with the Brotherhood Without Banners, and looked in her eyes and saw that she was going to be important. And then she happened to run into Jon Snow at Castle Black and saw him through the fire and just knew that he was going to be important too. So I was thinking, it seems to me that Melisandre probably didn't realize these two people were connected and was probably like, oh man, like kind of blown away that here they both are at this like epic moment at the end of the world, like she says.
She's finally reading the flames correctly.
Yeah. And so the Dothraki start shrieking and begin to gallop off, and Jorah in the midst of them as well, and Ghost starts charging.
Oh, that was a badass shot.
Oh my God, so badass. And we get this shot down like from the side looking at their legs and their hoofs just pounding the dirt, and the dirt is flying up in the air. It just as they're just slamming it. And we get Jorah and Ghost run in, and then there's this amazing drone shot, which is following the Dothraki from overhead, and they have all their erics lifted to the sky, and the drone like zooms down right with them, so it's flying with them. And it was just like an amazing shot. So good. And they're all flying forth, and it cuts to Dany and Jon watching from atop the bluff. And we can see down at what they're watching, and this image of the pitch black everywhere, just with this ejection of flames from the Dothraki erics shooting out into the darkness. And this is when it made me think of that astrological phenomenon. There are a couple different ones. It looked like there was like a streak of blazing luminescence, like the splatter from a sun being hit by a giant bullet, you know, and just spraying an arc of glowing sun matter through the darkness. Or it looked like the glowing plasma ejection from a double radio source active galactic nuclei, or dragon, speeding forth into the darkness of space. I'll have to post some pictures so you guys can see the comparison that I'm making. Actually, I'll add some videos in the video, so if you're watching this, you're seeing it. But it's just incredible. And they're watching as those flaming Erics are held high and they're screeching and ululating, and it cuts back to the catapults, and Grey Worm lights one of the big balls that they have sitting on him, and they start launching the catapults ahead of the Dothraki. And we get this shot kind of looking upwards at the Dothraki charging, and in the background you can see the big flaming balls of fire shooting past. The cinematography in this episode was just like mind-blowing constantly. So good.
It's just, the whole thing was aesthetically pleasing. It's just so, it gave you every emotion. It was so good.
Since we're talking about the way the episode looked, we should mention, unfortunately, that it ended up being too dark compared to what they actually produced.
That's right.
You said like a producer or somebody came out and was talking about how the compression of HBO and everything made the episode, screwed up the episode basically, and it didn't look like it was intended to look. If I would be really upset if I worked at HBO and the moment comes and the product you've been working on for so long looks dark and not the way that they intended it. It's really unfortunate that happened.
Well, yeah, and it's it's like the simplest thing that kind of ruined the whole episode for a lot of people, it seems, and that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. Super sucks. I noticed it right off the bat too. The first couple shots, I could tell that like the way that I was receiving the signal, it was hyper compressed and really pixelated. When Tyrion was walking through the courtyard, I remember thinking, what the fuck? Why does it look like this? You know, like it looks like 480p, you know, damn it. But, you know, whatever. So crazy intense music as these flaming balls are hurling past our heroes on their horses, and Ghost and Jorah are running together amidst the chaos, and Jorah is looking, he's intent, and Ghost runs ahead and starts to snarl, and we get this epic side shot of Ghost, and then it cuts to a couple more of the Dothraki in the front, and we see, like from this side shot, that the catapult balls are landing now very close to where the Dothraki are approaching, and we can start to see like a mass of hulking shadows, like
darkness
coming across towards the Dothraki. Very, very subtle. You can barely see it, but if you look closely, you can see the hulking shapes. And this one Dothraki like looks up and freaks out as he charges right into a giant. And the giant just smashes him. And sadly, Jon and Dany are watching from on top of this bluff. And the line of this coronal mass ejection that I mentioned before is just stopped dead. And right there, and starts, you can see like black engulfing it and moving through it. And like King Robert said, you'd have to be a fool to fight the Dothraki in an open field. And Jaime learned the truth of that. And after his fight with the Dothraki at the Loot Train battle, he said they're the toughest army he's ever seen. And he told Cersei essentially that they're unbeatable, right? Like, we don't stand a chance.
Yep.
And yet now Jon and Dany are watching as the Dothraki are literally extinguished blade by blade with the greatest of ease by this
zero fight, basically.
Right. This unseen darkness just extinguishes the toughest fighting force on the planet. Like, and Jaime, you know, everybody's watching in the distance as we get this amazing sequence where we can see all of the, like a line of torches in the distance swinging around as they're riding through the chaos and fighting. And one by one, all of these blades are being extinguished until the last one goes out. And we're seeing all these different characters' reactions to this. And importantly, I think it zooms in on Jaime's face and Jaime's reaction, because Jaime is was the person who, like I mentioned, learned from firsthand experience just how tough the Dothraki are. So he's watching in horror as this invincible force from his perspective is just erased right before his eyes, engulfed in darkness. And I think that he's terrified by this. And speaking of terrified, we get Sansa's reaction as she sort of like steps backwards on the battlements and in horror and terror. And I thought this was a really great storytelling device that we get, that we only get a brief little glimpse of that giant as that one Dothraki rides up on him and gets smashed, and we don't see anything else. We don't like it's a good storytelling device where we don't see the threat. It reminds me of like, what was that movie? Cloverfield?
Oh, I've never seen that, but is that it's like the fog or something? Or what
there's
is
like
it?
some alien creature or something, and like, but you only get like a little glimpse of like its leg, or, like every once in a while, like,
so your imagination can be scarier than what might actually be there.
Exactly. And that's what's happening here. Like, I'm imagining ice spiders and all kinds of crazy shit that they couldn't afford, apparently.
You want your ice spiders. It was an ice spider, okay?
I want an ice spider.
It was an ice spider.
There was I saw somebody posted a tweet. It was a tweet by giant ice spiders, like at Big as Hounds on Twitter. And it was like, please refrain from messaging us at this difficult time, where I guess they weren't hired to be in the episode. Like, there's no ice spiders in this episode. We wanted ice spiders.
That's great.
So yeah, I thought that was a funny tweet. And everybody's freaking out. And where there were once screams and wails of the Dothraki in combat, now there's only silence. And it's super, super eerie. And the camera is just jumping back and forth between all our heroes and all these people looking at their reactions. And this is when we see John Fay, who will be our guest this week on the podcast as well. He's one of the wildlings there standing next to a guy. You get a good close-up of him and another dude. So all of a sudden, a lone horse rides through the darkness without a rider. Super creepy, right? Followed by Jorah, who's looking like shell-shocked, and a few other Dothraki riders and other empty horses. And Ghost is conspicuously absent, which made me highly uncomfortable, although I'm confident that he survived. And this is when...
And Jorah looks over at everyone, like, gives a little shake of his head, like this is not good.
Right, and Tormund has seen Jorah fight beyond the wall and everything, and he's like shocked seeing him come back alone. Like, he knows it's a bad sign.
Shook.
So yeah, it cuts back to Dany and Jon up on the bluff there, and Dany starts to walk away like to her dragon, and Jon's like telling her to wait. He's like, the Night King is coming, we need to stick with the plan, try to get the Night King in here for the brand bait so we can take him out. But she's like, the dead are already here. And I was like, damn, like I didn't realize what the nuances were the first watch until my rewatch.
Right.
Jon wants to lure the Night King, and he thinks the Night King won't attack if the dragons are out. So he's like, we got to wait. We have to hold the position, right? But Dany's like, listen, they're slaughtering my blood riders, like...
Yeah, this is her army.
Yeah, like
these are her people.
Right, like when I'm just supposed to sit here and let everybody... all of the people that love and rely on me be murdered.
Yeah.
And so she
instantly.
Right.
Thanos style, like a snap, man.
Exactly. Right. And so she's like freaking out. She's like, I have to fight. Like, I can't just let everybody be killed. And it's just super sad. Like, those were her blood riders. Remember that moment she had sitting on Drogon where she's like, traditionally a cow will choose 3 blood riders. I choose you all. And they're all like super pumped. They all just got fucking murdered.
They loved her too. That's
right. That shows what dedication they had to her, riding into the unknown, like to fight in this circumstance, like into the darkness with no idea what's out there. That's dedication.
And before that, riding across the sea, right? I mean, they followed her straight to, man.
Yeah,
it breaks my heart.
Yeah, as horrible as it is, it's really beautiful. So Jon is just kind of left standing there like, fuck, she's, I can't argue with her about this. And that's pretty much the end of my number 3, is just that whole scene leading up to the Dothraki charging forth and just being extinguished in rapid and spectacular and tragic fashion. Super sad.
So good though.
Yeah. So what's your number 2? You mentioned it before, right?
My number 2 is the lighting the trench and Grey Worm's moment. His
oh man,
moment of decision. And
oh god, with the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hardcore.
And basically, I mean, having to let go of his dudes by keeping them, like, breaking the bridge down.
Right.
And then
he sacrifices,
just getting everyone out of the way to protect Melisandre so she can come come in and do her thing. Since I guess that was his quick decision, since, I think Danny was supposed to light the trench and couldn't see.
Yep, and John was parked over at the Godswood too, so he couldn't see either.
Yeah, so it was just like, I can't see. Davos is freaking out.
Yeah.
And they're shooting the arrows, and the arrows aren't doing anything. They're just going out, and the dead are killing everyone faster than they can get an arrow in their bow.
Unfortunately, yeah. And from the game revealed behind the scenes featurette that's like 40-minute long bonus footage, like showing behind the scenes stuff. It was like big ass troughs of propane gas, right? Yeah. So if you were to like actually shoot a fire arrow into that, it would work.
Yeah, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
It worked too well.
Yeah, way too well. Really impressed with that.
Just like you were saying earlier, Grey Worm in this whole episode was just, I was so worried about him so much, but he kept it together, and he made the right decisions at the right times. He was perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, he was on point. Like, he is a true asset to Danny. The Unsullied made the right decision when they chose him as their leader. Obviously it was like unanimous. They all saw his potential. So it's good to see him we all thought he was going to die this episode.
I thought he was going to die for sure.
Instead, he gets like an amazing episode where he's just like a fucking hero, and doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. And just the lighting of that trench was just stunning. Like when it goes back to Danny looking down, and it just whoosh all around Winterfell, and it was beautiful.
Mira is sort of like matched the way that the Dothraki's blades lit up, but even more intense,
Exactly.
Around the whole thing.
But it's just like through the whole episode, they do these in these layers of just, it's just so. It's so well told, and it's so well paced. I can't get enough of how they told this story. Yeah,
it's really, really
good. The story
good.
of a war. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Should we talk about the scene leading up to Grey Worm's decision there?
Yeah.
Nice. So, because it starts right off after, with the Dothraki scene there.
When they start coming through the big wave.
Yeah.
Like
people on the front lines after the Dothraki are wiped out are starting to look really freaked out and getting agitated and antsy. And
and they're starting to run away, and Brienne's like, hold your ground.
Yeah.
They're like, no.
Funny. And you can hear the scrambling footsteps in the darkness as the undead are running towards them. And everybody's starting to freak out. And Grey Worm, out of everybody, keeps his composure and just standing there looking stoic. Yeah, and puts his helmet on like a fucking G, man. So badass how he did that. And Dovakaris, he says that the Valyrian for Unsullied, and everybody gets in formation in the phalanx with their shields and the spears going forward. And oh my God, when that wave of the dead hits the Unsullied here, it's fucking ridiculous. It reminded me of the scene in The Door, when they're running to the door and they're in that tunnel, and Hodor is like running along, and Leaf, the girl, lies, gets stabbed up and then blows everybody up, but they're all scrambling around like the whole surface of the cave. Yeah, and just in rapid fashion crawling. And that's what it looked like as the wave of the dead hit the Unsullied and just went right over the top of them and just scrambled right over. Amazingly intense to watch. And oh my God, if we thought that the Battle of the Bastards was chaotic with just like a lot happening on screen at once, this dwarfs it. Like the amount of things that are going on screen at any given moment in this foray here, the initial battle, is just like ridiculous. There's dudes being decapitated, people getting knocked over and having limbs cut off and being bitten. And it's just like so rapid. There's just like undead faces flashing on screen for like fractions of a second, and
everyone's scurrying everywhere. It looks so creepy. It's just so creepy to me.
So creepy.
So good though.
So creepy, yeah. And Tormund is watching in horror as the army to his left, the Unsullied, is being viciously trampled and trod upon, and the dead are going right up over the top of them. Mm-hmm. Like he looks over and you can see the Unsullied, and then the dudes are just going right over them, and like a tidal wave. It was insane.
That's exactly what it looked like. It looked like a big-ass tidal wave.
And Brienne gets trampled and knocked over, screaming, and that's when Jaime saves her. And right when Jaime saves her, before they can kill him, which I thought was going to happen for sure, that's when Drogon appears out of nowhere and just a gout of dragon fire just incinerates all the undead right around Jaime. And
that music comes in.
Yes. And oh man, this was an interesting moment for me because this time Jaime's glad to see the dragon fire because it's on his side, you know. Last time he was in a situation like this, his army was being roasted and disintegrated and turned to dust in front of him, and the dragon fire resulted in looks of horror on his face. But now here, we get the dragon fire roasting the dead, and a look of relief passes over Jaime's face. And just a contrast of how different his reactions have been in these different contexts of the dragon fire was just intense to me, you know? Like,
it says so much for the story and how much these characters, their arcs go. It's,
definitely.
Crazy. And then the fire, like gleaming against the clouds.
Yeah. They were talking about that on the game revealed. They were talking about how there's like 3 different modes of lighting through the episode, right? Where like there's the first scene where it's all pale moonlight, and then the second like whole midsection of the episode where you have the moonlight mixed with the red glow of the trench fires. And then at the end, it's like back to moonlight or something.
Right.
But really good, really cool lighting. I'm looking forward to seeing how the episode looks when it's on Blu-ray and actually looks like it's supposed to look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, seriously. It's
going to be beautiful. And speaking of beautiful shots, we get some amazing shots right here of it cuts from the dragonfire to Dany bouncing around on Drogon's back. And she, like I talked about, like it's like a full motion. It's not just wings moving around the dragon. Like the dragon torso is like bucking, and she's like bouncing around, trying to just held onto those spindly little spikes for dear life, right?
Her little saddle or whatever she has going on.
Yeah,
not much.
Yeah. They don't have anything. Like, oh my God, the dragon riders of old, the Targaryens would have saddles for the dragons and safety chains. So it's just hashtag so dumb. They're running around with nothing, basically.
Barebacking.
Yeah. So it cuts to Sansa and Arya, and they're both in shock of, this is their first time like seeing the dragons in action. You know what I mean? So I think they're both just in awe at what the dragons are capable of. And I was thinking,
had they seen? Oh yeah, they've seen Jon on the dragon before.
Yeah,
he went on that ride.
They'd seen him riding it. He's probably been practicing too since his initial ride, preparing for the fight.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just like here we go.
Yeah. So it's showing Sansa and Arya freaking out, and I was thinking at this point, oh man, I think Sansa's starting to get the gravity of the whole situation. Like she's starting to see what a threat the undead are. She's starting to see what a force the dragons are. I was thinking maybe she'll like chill out with Dany, the whole Dany thing, you know, realize that like it's all working out the way it's supposed to, hopefully. And, but nope, we learned she's still on that bullshit in the crypt. We find out in a little bit. And, this is when the storm arrives. They're flying around, roasting stuff, and Dany and Jon are kind of riding around together, blasting everything, right? And they're up high together with each other. And Jon looks down and sees something, and he sees the tree line and all of Craster's sons, or the White Walkers, lined up in front of the undead army, just sitting there waiting. And he's like, fuck this!
Not giving a single fuck down there, just chilling.
Not giving a single fuck. And he's like, this is unacceptable. And he fucking dives. Like that shot that we got of his first dragon ride when Rhaegal dives down the waterfall. That was foreshadowing this, I think, where Jon decides to dive on Rhaegal and swoops down. He's about to roast all those fucking bastards down there, but nope, the white cold rolls in. Oh man, I was super. Yeah, I was excited to see the white cold. Do you know much about the white cold?
I know it's from the books, right? It's described more in the books.
Yeah, I got a couple quotes to read. In A Dance with Dragons, chapter 58, John 12, Tormund says, "A man can fight the dead, but when their masters come, when the white mists rise up, how do you fight a mist, Crow? Shadows with teeth, air so cold it hurts to breathe, like a knife inside your chest. You do not know. You cannot know. Can your sword cut cold?" Oh, man. Goosebumps.
That is amazing.
So intense. Yeah. And Craster's wives and daughters describe the white cold when they're at Craster's Keep as well. And then after Sam is researching the books and annals in Castle Black in the library, Sam tells Jon, "The others come when it's cold. Most of the tales agree. Or else it gets cold when the others come. Sometimes they appear during snowstorms and melt away when the sky's clear. They hide from the light of the sun and emerge by night, or else night falls when they emerge." So it's telling us like either they bring the cold and the darkness, or they only come out when it's really cold and really dark. But it seems to suggest they bring the darkness. So when this big giant fog rolls in, it essentially blots out the sun. Mm-hmm. For all intents and purposes. Well, it looks like that was
their defense. They saw him and they're like, nope.
Yeah.
Come on, ice cloud.
Yeah, exactly. They just rolled it right through. That was so intense. And shit gets chaotic in the air, right? As soon as this happens.
You feel it too. I mean, you feel so uncomfortable for them watching it. Like,
right. Yeah.
Even the second time, I was like, God, that makes me uncomfortable just to watch.
It almost seemed like there was like hail flying around or something, like particulate matter, as they're both like getting jostled on the back of their dragons, trying to hang on for dear life and struggling to stay mounted. And we get one amazing shot, like one of the most beautiful shots of the whole series. We see like the cloud of mist hovering above, and one of the dragons is like right below the bulk of the cloud and just shoots fire all across the ground, and you can see the mist rolling in from the back at the same time and hitting the fire, and it kind of like extinguishes the blaze as it's happening down on the ground. It's like really really cool shot.
Man.
Yeah.
They just nailed it with it. I mean,
the cinematography is just incredible in this episode. Yeah. Just gorgeous. And so this is when it cuts back to Sansa and Arya. And Arya's like, "You got to get the fuck out of here. Like, you're the Lady of Winterfell. You need to go down to the crypt." Right? And Sansa's not having it. She's like, "I'm not abandoning my people. You know, I can't do it." And Arya hands her a dragonglass dagger and is like, "Dude, you got to." And this is a great reference to season 1. Episode 1 or episode 2, when Jon gives Arya a needle and she's like, "Well, how do I use it?" Right? Mm-hmm. You know, you want to say it.
I do. Stick them with the pointy end. So cute.
Yeah, I love that. And so
just the way she said it too. Just stick them with the pointy end.
Yep, just so casual. Like, that's just what you got to do. Stick them with the pointy end. So it was funny seeing like Sansa is now like where Arya was like at the start, you know, kind of thing. And it's all coming around, and it's just a great season 1 reference. And
so many callbacks in this episode. So many great ones, especially with Arya.
Nice. Yeah. Mention them when we get to them. Make sure in case I missed any. So Sansa's like, "Yeah, okay, I should probably go." And she heads down over there.
She's like, "Oh, well, if you say so."
Yeah, and she rushes off, and then the fog starts to overtake the fighters on the field. And that feeling of chaos that we got in the sky starts to like envelop the ground as well. As Tormund is like fighting and in the raging battle, all of a sudden the wind is swirling around him and there's just like stuff flying everywhere, adding to the madness. And it cuts to Jaime, who's fighting, and I'm like, how the fuck is Jaime even still alive with his gimpy ass hand and everything? You know, like how is he? He doesn't even have a shield. He can't even hold a shield. Somehow he's hanging in there. And the storm. Oh, and we get an epic shot of the dragons coming along the circumference again and roasting the undead, like paralleling the trench basically. And I saw it the second or third watch through, there's a giant standing in the middle of the crowd, and the dragon comes flying through and roasts him, and the giant lights up and everything. It's so cool. Yeah.
I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, I was really happy because I was wondering, we saw that shot when Bran had that vision in a recent episode from 2 years ago when when he has a vision and it shows like the army of the dead heading south, and it zooms in on the giant's eye, right? But there was like a series of giants hulking in the shadow, in the fog in that shot. Right. So I was like, we only got one giant in this episode, the one that we see hitting the Dothraki guy and then busting through the door at Winterfell. I think that's the giant whose eye we zoom in on in that one episode back then. But
makes sense.
Yeah. So cuts to the Godswood, and Theon and Bran are over there, and the storm is starting to hit in the Godswood too. You can see it's starting to get murky over there.
Yeah.
Murky. And then it cuts back out there, and a couple of whites tackle Jorah and his horse. And I was like, damn, Jorah's still riding around on a horseback? Not for long. They tackle him.
Psych.
Yeah, and his horse is like swamped with whites, and he tumbles off of it. And I was like, oh man, this totally foreshadows Drogon being swamped by whites, and Dany tumbling off of Drogon, and Jorah being there to save her. It was a very similar type situation. And all of our heroes at this point are just fighting desperately. And, Pod and Gendry and Tormund and Jaime and Brienne and Sandor just all fighting for their lives, like in a mad scramble. And but it's like the ultimate dream team, though, at the same time, minus Arthur Dayne.
They're all working together. You see that they're all a team now. All these people who were they fucking hated each other. Yeah. And they're pulling each other out of the way and like getting each other's attention, and they're fighting together. And
yep.
I mean, we couldn't ask for anything more than that, really.
Yeah, totally. And so 3 of our heroes are all taken down here at the same time, basically, as Jaime is tackled and has whites on top of him, and then Tormund is tackled and has whites crawling all over him, and then Sam is tackled and has whites all over him, and all at the same time 3 of our heroes are down and like in serious danger, and Sam is freaking out, doing his like Sam stuff, and Ed saves him. And we talked about that already, but he first saves him, and then Sam's freaking out, and it sucks. He ends up being killed. But then it cuts down to the crypt, and Sansa basically arrives in the crypt and walks down there. And it seemed to me that everybody was looking to her to say something. Did you get that vibe too?
Yeah, I got the feeling that they were, because just the way Tyrion kind of walks away like, oh fuck, and then drinks, and they wanted to know. Yeah,
very interesting, because it made me think of that whole scene during the Battle of the Blackwater Bay. When she's in the room in the Red Keep with Cersei and everybody, and Cersei's doing nothing for morale and just sitting there drinking, acting pissy.
Making it worse.
Yeah. And Sansa just starts to sing a song and ends up like helping the morale and bringing the people together. And it's like a really beautiful moment for Sansa. And here she totally does the opposite. Does nothing.
I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
It seems like, just thinking about it, it seems like this battle has a lot of things from a lot of the different battles that we've seen before, like little throwbacks to Battle of the Bastards, Blackwater. I'm starting to see a lot of things that are similar.
Right.
Now that we're talking about it more.
Good point. Yeah, like the Hound freaking out. Yeah, definitely. So the door closes and locks for the crypt again, and then it's Jon and Dany flying blind through the chaos and the fog, and I was like, oh my God, as all of a sudden Rhaegal is so low to the ground that he's like hitting all these branches.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, his poor little arms. I thought that the branches might snap his wings, which would have been horrifying and horrible. Luckily, he seems to tough it out, even though he's like, you can hear him like screaming, and then he ascends back into the air, and they're flying through, like, they can't tell what, and all of a sudden, whack! Rhaegal and Drogon collide head on, full speed,
You hear it too.
Oh my God. And they just start tumbling. It looked like it hurt, like the dragons.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed that neither Danny or John fell off of their own dragon at this point. Like, how is that possible, right?
Seriously.
Crazy. So they're tumbling through the air, and they somehow, they end up righted, and they're flying together, and they're kind of like looking at the other dragon for one another, John and Danny. And it zooms down on the countless dead beneath them, just enclosing on the castle. And this is when Tormund and Brienne start ordering the troops to fall back, leading up to the big Grey Worm moment. And it cuts back into the castle, and Lyanna is just running shit in there. She's taking charge.
Fucking badass.
Yeah, so badass. Open the gate! She's just like, keep moving, giving orders that are all like, she's doing everything that needs to be done. So cool. Love little legendary
and
Lady
she's
Lyanna.
Confident. She knows exactly what she's doing, and everyone's fucking listening too.
So badass.
It's like
incredible. It's like she's a force of nature, force majeure. And so everybody's retreating, and John and Danny are flying through the air, and John is like yelling for Danny. And I don't know what makes him decide this. Maybe he thinks he needs to get closer to Bran now that they can't see anything. And in case the Night King arrives, and he decides to go land down near the Godswood on the walls, basically, of Winterfell. And unfortunately, this means that neither of them are in position to see Davos's signal. Right? So Grey Worm is just beasting out on all these dudes, just slaughtering like all kinds of undead creatures everywhere. And the Hound is retreating back towards the walls, and we get a shot of Arya, and she sees the Hound and draws her bow back. And and they make us think for a second that Arya is about to shoot the Hound, but then she shoots a white that's right behind him, and he's kind of stops and turns and sees it, and then he looks up at Arya on the battlements, and they sort of see each other for a split second. It reminded me of when Ollie shot Ygritte, and John looked over at Ollie, and they made eye contact, and he was like, "Yep, I helped you out." Nods. There's no nod by Arya, but a similar type moment.
I think that also I think there's little pieces that remind us about Arya throughout the seasons. Like that's a nod back to season one when she did the arrow.
Yep, shooting over Bran.
Past Bran.
Yeah, exactly. Good call. Good call. So Grey Worm now realizes that a good number of Unsullied are trapped outside of the fire trench. And he has to make the executive decision to essentially cut them off from safety. And it's really fucking sad. Like I mentioned before, Grey Worm keeps his composure more than probably anybody else in this whole episode. But you can tell this hurts him because he starts to lose his composure for a second here.
He starts kind of breathing hard and
looking at his brothers out there. And you can tell it's a decision that's taxing him, and it's just it's not happy, but he sees his hand clenches, and he undoes the rope from around that thing and yanks the cable, and the bridge. It turns from a bridge over the trench into an obstacle, and the edges pop up with spikes on them and stuff. They talked about that in the game revealed about the different things that they built, and they made those so that they were dual function as bridges over the fire trench, but then also they would turn into booby traps basically.
Right. So
that was really cool design. And so sadly Grey Worm had to, basically murder a whole lot of his Unsullied. That was rough, man. That was really rough. And I guess that's that leading up to that Grey Worm scene.
Yep.
Whew. So what are we on? My number 2 now?
Yes.
My number 2 is, of course, Viserion berserking around the courtyard of Winterfell later on in the episode with half of his face ripped off, and he's just breaking all the stones beneath his feet, just smashing up everything, just launching blue flames all around that courtyard, right? How cool is that?
Tail flailing, everything just flailing around.
Yeah, it reminded me of this moment in Gears of War. The first time you see one of these big-ass bug creatures, it kind of spins around and starts berserking and destroying all this stuff, and really freaky. It reminds me a lot of this. But yeah, Jon goes, he's just trying to get to Bran, right? That's all he's trying to do, just trying to get to Bran. And he gets to this one courtyard, and Viserion, he stopped, Jon stops and hears a sound, a dragon screeching overhead. Viserion just comes crashing down and smashes a good section of the wall and just starts crawling over everything and just snapping his jaws, and his head is just like flopping all over the place, and fire is just leaking out from his neck and his like face. And they made a 3D cast, as you saw in the documentary, of Viserion's face half missing. And they shoot the flames, like when the dragons are shooting fire and stuff, they actually have a pitch black set soundstage, and they shoot flames in the darkness and record video of the flames being shot by flamethrowers, and then they superimpose it into the show. So they try to shoot as much real stuff as possible instead of using.
They did that with the loot train too, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. So here they have this piece of fabrication that they've made of Viserion's face, half of it missing, and they shot flames through it and let the flames like rise up over the edge of it so they could get an accurate depiction of the way that flames would behave coming out of these oddly shaped holes on Viserion's face. So that was like a length of detail that they went to, which is just like absurd to make this look as real as possible.
It pays off too. It
looks
everywhere.
So good. And so Jon is freaking out as Viserion starts shooting blue flames all over the place, and he ducks into a side room just at the last second as the blue flames come busting in through the door. And he's like, oh, he's like got his eyes closed and he's like pressed up against the wall, and the flames are just shooting into the room and just lighting him up. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so intense, just so narrowly avoided defeat there.
I know. Just the way the flames just lick around him. It's just the blue is just stunning.
Yeah. They lick around Dany too in the aerial battle, which we'll get to in a little bit. But she, I think, so the Night King is in the courtyard at this point with Bran. I think that, like Sir Patrick was saying, that he can like really control these whites. I think he knows that the people would need to get through this courtyard to get to the Godswood to get him. So he puts Viserion there specifically to prevent people from being able to get into the Godswood.
Right.
Which is intense. So it happens a couple times where Jon is just trying to bypass Viserion. He runs back out into the courtyard, realizes he's about to get flamed again, and like hides back in the rooms again. Yeah. And he eventually is like, fuck this. Like, I don't have a choice. I have to just keep moving. And he runs out there and starts taking cover behind things that are just out there, like strewn across the courtyard. And there's this shot where he's like pressed up against this obstacle behind him, and the blue flames are coming over the top, and yellow flames are licking him from the bottom, and it's just like, oh my God. And like his eyes are shut again, and it just looks like he's trying not to be like, let his eyes be roasted by the heat that's just emanating from this blue flames inches from his face. Like if his eyes were open, his eyes would be burned. He's like just got to close them because of the heat. And he's sitting there, and eventually he realizes that he doesn't have any choice, and he's got to face Viserion. The dumbest fucking move ever. He jumps up and turns around and faces Viserion and just, screams in his face. It doesn't even do anything. Like, it doesn't jump or swing his sword or anything. Just stands there yelling, and Viserion, like, starts, his mouth, his jaws just open up wide, and his whole head like moves back and like recoils like he's about to just like move forward like a snake and just like bite him and simultaneously roast him with the fire, because you see it's like all just like leaking out. And it's right at that moment when when Arya stabs the Night King, and Viserion goes from this posture of like just about to strike to just going completely limp. And
that was great the way they did that too. His neck just like moved.
It was amazing. So believable, the physics of it. Like, I was very impressed with that. But yeah, that's my number 2, just Viserion berserking around the courtyard. Loved that.
Yeah, that one will stick in my mind for a while. Just the beauty of it, man. That blue.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of that blue flame.
I know, right? So yeah, what's your number 1, Princess Sarah?
My number 1 is Arya serves her purpose.
Nice. Yeah, that's my number 1 too. Arya for the win. Fuck yeah. Take it away.
Oh, I don't even know where to begin with Arya, except that I loved how this whole episode, they showed us where she was supposed to be. Like everything that she's done, not just this episode, but everything that she's done ever had led up to this moment in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And I saw on the internet a lot of people saying that it was so easy and how could she have done this? But if you watch the show and you know the collection of everything that she's learned, everything she's been through, it makes too much sense. It makes so much sense.
Right. And even just a couple episodes ago, they set up the fact that Arya is capable of sneaking to this exact point in the Godswood without being noticed. Remember John's standing there and she all of a sudden is standing behind him and he's like, how did you sneak up on me?
Sneak up on me. They literally said.
Yeah. And she's like, how did you survive a knife in the heart? Which is funny because she sneaks up on the Night King and then puts a knife through his heart.
Yep.
Like, telegraphing. So it is established that Arya is capable of arriving at this point in the Godswood being completely unnoticed.
They push that point through a little more when she's in the library?
Oh, yeah. Just sneaking around.
Sneaking around in there, too.
Yeah, she has her Sam Fisher Splinter Cell moment where she tosses a book to distract the whites and runs the other way. Like in the original Splinter Cell video game, you can pick up like a penny or a bottle, or like a can or something and throw it to distract the enemies, to make them look over in one direction and you creep past while they're distracted, or you come up and take them out, So that was cool. It was like a little bit of Splinter Cell for a moment there, which I really liked. Yeah.
So she just, everything that happened, she learned. What else did I have? Oh, like she learned from the Hound where the weak part of the armor is.
Oh,
like everything is.
You know where the heart is? Is that what you're referencing? When the guy is asking the Hound to kill him, and he stabs him through the heart and says, "That's where the heart is," to Arya. She's like, "I know where the heart is." Remember? And then she stabs the Night King.
Too, yeah.
What part were you referencing?
I was thinking, isn't there a time when he's talking about like the armor and where the weak part of the armor is? Maybe it wasn't the Hound. Maybe it was someone else.
She tried to stab the Hound in that same spot with needle.
I feel like he was telling her something like that.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Either way, it all laid up to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, I like that roll that she did too. The roll down over the whites. It made me think of when the waif was chasing her. Right. She rolled down all those steps.
Yeah.
I was like,
true, that's so
down.
Funny. That whole chase with the waif like foreshadowed this big chase running through the maze of Winterfell by, another relentless enemy pursuing her maniacally. Mm-hmm. Totally. That's pretty cool.
But through her whole every behavior that she had this whole episode, she reminded us how badass she is, and it made it believable to me.
Yeah.
And it just, in the little featurette, it talks about how the Double Ds knew that she was going to be the one that killed him for like 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years ago they said they knew. So that's pretty crazy.
And they nailed it. They nailed it with all of the writing, everything. I buy it. I like it.
Yeah, I thought it worked out really well too. And it makes sense because the Night King would be the single greatest enemy of the many-faced god. The many-faced god doles out death. And the Night King is out there undoing all of his work, bringing all these dead people back to life. And, that must really piss off the many-faced god. So so Arya is the perfect person to finish this job, to do the job for him. I feel like we talked about why or how it was interesting that Arya was supposed to like abandon her identity, but Jaqen sort of let her leave as Arya Stark. It seems
she says she leaves saying,
right,
I'm Arya Stark
of Winterfell and I'm going home. Yeah. And so I feel like maybe this was all part of the many-faced god's plan. Like it needed to be Arya because Arya is the only person, is the one that would be capable of being at Winterfell. It's Arya Stark that is the one that can infiltrate into the Godswood. You know what I mean? Like it had to be Arya. So I feel like in this case, being nobody wasn't necessarily essential to the task. And
well, it's like she had to become no one to be able to become someone again. She had to go through it.
Yeah, that true. Like to be able to do, like to learn all the techniques and everything that she's, employed. Definitely. Anything else you want to add about Arya or about that last moment?
I just really like that there were so many things that brought me joy to remember about Arya. I mean, just since season 1. Yeah. Since that arrow,
Yeah.
Ever since.
So
I
good.
love her.
Man. Yeah, she's great. It was so cool how dire everything was in that moment. Jon was trapped by Viserion and just couldn't get past him. And the fighting was just so intense. Like this was like everything was just so desperate at this moment. Like Jaime was overrun. Exhausted. Brienne's like, even more, Sam, there's that whole scene
crying.
Where, Jon cuts through the courtyard trying to get to Bran and he sees Sam being overrun and turns to help him momentarily, but then realizes that Bran is like the mission, and he can't be sidetracked and he abandons Sam. I was like yelling at my TV, like, you can't leave Sam!
It's Sam!
Yeah, and I think that's partially why Sam was crying, because he was abandoned by Jon.
Yeah.
Because that's the next we see him after Jon abandons him, is just Sam sitting where Jon left him, just hopeless, crying. Yeah. So sad, man. And so all this helpless, everybody's just so helpless, and the music is just so intense. And the piano comes in, and it's almost like an alternate version of the Light of the Seven, that song that's playing as this is all happening, and it's piano, which we don't normally get in Game of Thrones.
It made me think of when she blew up the Sept of Baelor.
Yeah, exactly. That's, the Light of Seven.
Yeah, that's
Light
the
of the
Light
Seven.
of Seven?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect.
Nailed it. So it's just the music is getting so somber and so depressing and so dark. And as the Night King is approaching Bran, and he walks up to him, and Bran isn't even looking at him. He's kind of turned away, and eventually turns and makes eye contact with him, and they sort of stand there looking at each other for a second before the Night King begins to reach back for his blade. And even as he's approaching Bran, you get a shot from behind his hand, and you see his fingernails glowing in the moonlight as he's approaching, and then that hand reaches back to grab the blade. And you see from the darkness, first of all, it cuts to a side shot of a White Walker, and a little wind wisps past him, and his hair
his hair goes up.
So I'm thinking, where was Arya? Was she on the ground here just running, or did she creep on the tree branches? I want to know where she came from. But she comes out of nowhere. I think that's going to be one of those mysteries. Yeah, totally.
I think they're going to make us try to decide ourselves.
I think the internet has actually figured out where Arya came from. I've watched it a couple times pretty closely, and I think this might be accurate. When Jon finally jumps out in front of Viserion and yells at him, I don't think he's just yelling at Viserion. I think he yells, "Go! Go! Go!" And he's yelling at Arya. And in the split second that Viserion cocks his head back to attack, distracted by Jon, Arya runs by super fast, whizzes past that White Walker, jumps towards the Night King, and gets him. I'm pretty sure that's how it happens. And so he's reaching back, and all of a sudden, out of the darkness, Arya is launching at him. The blade in the air, and Bran
scream and everything.
Yeah. And the Night King, in one motion, turns and blocks her, grabs her hand and catches her by the throat. Both of his hands being occupied. And we hear this sound as Arya is being choked. And man, we've talked about it before, when you hang somebody, there's a distance. You drop them so that it breaks their neck but prevents their head from being severed. It's the perfect drop distance. Who knows how far Arya went flying through the air before being caught by her neck. She's lucky that it didn't break her neck. Just being caught.
It seemed like it did before.
Right,
when you first watch it, you hear all those sounds and you're like, oh, she did.
Right,
all this. That was my first thought, was all this and that's it?
And she's dead. Right. And she, her hand kind of goes limp, and she drops the blade. And I thought that was her muscles releasing like as she was being killed. But nope, she's reversing that move she did against Brienne. Yeah, it's her trick move. And that blade drops down and just lands perfectly in her hand. And she just jams it right into the Night King's heart. Yeah. And his body turns to ice around the blade and just disintegrates around it. And she drops to the ground and the ice just flows out everywhere. The shards of the fragments of the Night King.
The look on his face too, the shot like of her empty hand as the knife is coming out. And he's just like, he's realizing that shit, something's going down. Oh, it was so good.
In the Night King's eyes?
Yeah, the Night King's eyes. It's like through her hand and it's empty and you can see his face and he's just like... That
must be the shot that Lord Richard of House Horsfield, a good Scottish friend, he sent, he made a meme where it shows like that look in his eyes and it's like that look you get when you know you fucked up. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, totally.
And that's saying a lot because the Night King doesn't have many emotions. He smirked a little at one point, but
yeah. Oh man, what a smirk too. Yeah, and then everybody's just dropping dead. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Anything else you want to add about Arya, or should we move on to notes?
Let's move on. Arya speaks for herself.
Yeah, definitely. So we're back to the trenches, and Davos starts giving the signal for Dany to swoop through and roast him to light him up. But Dany's in the fog and she can't see anything. And Jon is also like over at the opposite side of the castle, so he can't see anything. So there's like this panic where they realize that they're alone and nobody's getting the signals. So Davos starts yelling for the people down below to light the trench by any means possible. And all these fire arrows are shooting down and people are like running up to the trench trying to light it. And Grey Worm looks over and sees Melisandre. And this is one of those quick decisions you talked about where it must have just clicked in his head. Oh, she lit all those blades on fire. I need to ask her for help. I think that he really quickly in this moment recruited her and got her to come out and help because he sets up his Unsullied in this barrier and walks it out towards the trench. Because at this point, the Whites are just climbing right over it, like... They've fallen back. He pulled the lever so that the rest of the Unsullied are trapped out there, but they haven't gotten the trench actually lit, so it's not working as a barricade. They're just crawling through it. So it's like this horrifying moment where the plan is failing, and there's like a Hail Mary attempt to try to fix the situation. So they come walking out. And they're just shooting guys with arrows all around that are approaching this barricade of Unsullied in this little rectangle. And Melisandre walks out and walks up to the trench and kneels down and starts reciting the same Valyrian prayer that she had said that lit the Arrax on fire of the Dothraki at the beginning of the episode, but nothing's happening. And she's saying it over and over and nothing's happening and people are dying all around her and the dead are scrambling and it's so intense and she stops and she looks to her right and you see like all the dead and then it cuts back to her and she looks to her left and you see all the dead over there and then it cuts back to her and she starts getting more and more panicked and she's like getting really agitated as she's like begging the prayer at this point.
Her voice is all shaking and her eyes are kind of...
Her eyes are bugged out. She looks horrified and it was really effective to me because like we've seen her throughout all of these seasons, but she's never like had this panicked look per se. Like, she kind of freaked out when Shireen burned and nothing worked and she left, but here she looks terrified.
She was full on panic.
Oh my God, the look on her face was horrifying. Just that look. And she's like getting more and more. It reminded me of like Miri Mazdur as she's being burned alive and she's, her wailing is being amplified as the fire starts to touch her and she's getting more and more agitated with her singing.
It grows and grows.
Yeah, and Melisandre's voice is like getting louder and more erratic and quivering. And right at the last moment, as the Whites are crawling over the barricade, one of them launches over. Axios and Mendes, and boom! The trench lights up and just evaporates this white, like inches from her face. And
that shot in her eyes, too, the flames.
Yeah,
oh
we see the flames reflecting in her eyes, and she's sitting there looking like, oh my God. But I think in that moment, she's realizing that the Lord of Light still hasn't completely abandoned me. He came through for me again. Like, it may have been right at the last second, but he came through again. And the way that it was like a last second absolute desperation reminded me of the story that Thoros told of how he resurrected Beric. He was a failed red priest. He still, did the things that he was supposed to do and carried the flaming sword, but just to look cool and like wear the robes to look exotic, the red robes, but he didn't believe any of it anymore. But they're in battle and his best friend, Beric Dondarrion, gets killed next to him. And he freaks out basically, and just in a moment of desperation, kneels over him and starts saying the words that he's been trained to say. And just out of nowhere, a miracle takes place. And in this moment of hopelessness, he finds the Lord of Light again, or the Lord of Light finds him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like that. It happened sort of with Melisandre when she was trying to resurrect Jon Snow too. Like, it didn't seem to work and they were getting desperate, and then they all give up and lose hope, and then he comes back to life. Same thing here. She's like losing hope and becoming more and more desperate, and then just right at the last second. So epic. So epic. So she's, and the trenches just go into like a blaze everywhere, like you said, and the music as they just surround Winterfell. Glorious. The trenches in their full glory. Amazing work.
There's a great shot too, through the flames of the dead just waiting outside it with the blue glowing eyes.
Yeah, that's when the Hound starts freaking out, right?
Yeah, that's when he panics.
Yeah, and Sandor looks horrified and starts shrinking away from the fire as he's looking through it. The undead, like the two most horrible things he can imagine. The undead army and fire. He's like, fuck this. This is like so much worse than the Battle of Blackwater Bay. It's just fire at that point. Fuck, goddamn. Yeah, and Beric is like, he has like this like attraction, like this, he was like compelled to be with Sandor and like to help Sandor. Mm-hmm. Immediately, he's like, Clegane, as Sandor starts shrinking away from the fire. And it cuts back to the crypt. And and we get Varys. And he says the dumbest thing you could possibly say. Right?
At least now I know.
Right?
At least we're already in a crypt.
Right. Yeah. No, Varys, that's a bad thing. You don't want to be in a crypt when the Night King raises his arms and makes the dead rise. He's like, well, at least we're already in a crypt. Like, well, if we die, we're already, in a place to be buried. Like, kind of a joke. Yeah. But it's a bad thing.
Yeah, that has the opposite effect here in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And Tyrion is getting restless. And he's like, if we were up there, we might see something that makes a difference, something that everyone else is missing. And this is like, remember like Battle of Blackwater? I led us through that fight. I was like the difference, with his strategy and his secret tunnels and, But Varys is like, yeah, but you got your face cut in half. He's like, but it made the difference. It made the difference that we needed. He's like, if I was out there right now, and Sansa cuts him off, you'd die. And she does the exact opposite of what she did at King's Landing, and she freaks everybody out basically. Like, I mean, I don't know how loud she says this, but she's like, "Listen, this is why we're all down here. Like, none of us have the power to do anything."
It's loud enough so Homegirl can hear her at least.
Which Homegirl?
Missandei.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, true. She gets all mad. But Tyrion has a funny line here too, right? Sansa's like, there's nothing you can do. And he's like, you'd be surprised at the lengths I'd go to avoid joining the army of the dead. I could think of no organization less suited to my talents. Like, I don't want to join them. They
wouldn't want me anyway.
Yeah, mindless, brainless, unthinking horde, Borg hive mind type thing. That's the exact opposite of Tyrion, thinking for himself, being an individual outside the box, like total opposite of anything that would suit his his talents, like he says. So I thought that was a really funny line. And this is when Sansa, lays down the truth and like, witty remarks won't make a difference. That's why we're here. None of us can do anything. Maybe the most it's the most heroic thing we can do right now is to look the truth in the eye. And Tyrion is like, whoa, who are you? Like you are so different than the last time we hung out.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should have stayed married. And they have like this really like sincere moment between the two of them where she's like, you know, you were the best of them, right? She's been married all these times and it's always been like horrible sadists and rapists and stuff. And Tyrion's reaction, what a terrifying thought, you know, that he was the best of them.
The way he delivers that line, that was just like
so good.
Terrifying thought.
Maybe we should have stayed married.
You were the best of them.
What a terrifying thought.
So good. Yeah, just that delivery was amazing. And they're like smiling, but then she's like, it wouldn't work between the two of us. Why not? You know, he's like, what the fuck? Like, I thought we were just starting to hit it off, you know? It seems like it would work. And they're like thinking about it. You know, the two of them are sitting there thinking about this, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
And and she's like, no, it wouldn't work. The Dragon Queen, your divided loyalties would become a problem. And that's when Missandei is like, takes offense to this. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, without the Dragon Queen, there'd be no problem at all. You know, like we'd all be fucked. And good point, Missandei.
Dead already.
Yeah, so Sansa's still on that bullshit. Yeah. Quit talking shit. Exactly. Yeah, so at this point, I'm like, damn, yeah, Sansa still is not like realizing the gravity of the situation, unfortunately. So now we're back at the Godswood, and Theon tells Bran that they've lit the trench, AKA our defenses are collapsing. This is not good. You know, like if they've lit the trench, that means that the undead are right outside the walls,
right
basically.
outside the,
So that is bad news. And he feels this is his moment to like sort of confide in Bran, right? He's like, Bran, I just want you to know, I wish the things I did, you know? And Bran cuts him off. Everything you did brought you to where you are now, where you belong, home. You know, what a powerful moment between the two of them, right? Like,
he needed to hear that.
like,
Theon has been needing that, you know, validation for so long.
Exactly. This is the final piece in his validation puzzle. Like Rickon isn't around to forgive Theon, but he got Sansa's forgiveness when he saved her or helped save her and give her the strength to escape Winterfell and Ramsay. Then he got Jon's forgiveness. You know, Jon said, I can't forgive you for everything. But for what I can, I do, you know. He got Jon's forgiveness for what he can forgive him for. Then
he got that confidence in his name and who he is.
Yep. And then he got Yara's forgiveness. She headbutts him, but she forgives him and affirms that he's a Greyjoy, but he, you know, that he's still family, but he needs to go where he feels like he needs to be. And that was big for Theon. And this is it. This is full circle for Theon, the last remaining person that Theon needed to be forgiven by. Closure. Yeah. So now he can die happy. Oh, too soon. Damn. You know, oh, damn, he is about to die. Fuck. Oh, man. But it's like, I just thought it was such an emotionally overwhelming moment, you know, that everything you did, even if it was bad, it brought you to where you need to be, to where you are now, home. You know? Crazy. So
and then Bran.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah.
I'm going to go now.
Theon's like,
just so matter of fact out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm going to go now. And Theon's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? And then he just like goes off into warg mode. And his ravens fly right up to the Night King. But first, they're flying along, and one of the dragons comes swooping by, and they kind of like fly right through the dissipating flames. Looked so cool. Again, another amazing moment of cinematography in this episode. Just a fantastic looking episode. And so they fly right up to the Night King, and he's just lurking there on Viserion's back. And we get this gnarly shot looking upwards at him, and he's like bouncing a little bit, and his face is blurry. And then into the foreground of the camera comes his hand as he reaches down.
Were his eyes like warged? When I saw it the second time, it looked like his eyes were all ward like grands or something.
Ooh, interesting.
That freaked me out.
I didn't catch that. It's entirely possible. He does seem to be able to tap into the werewood network as well, the ice Wi-Fi. So, yeah, it's possible. And at first I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, he does these hand gestures. Raising his arms makes the dead, do his rise. I guess pointing his hand like that just makes them do whatever he wants. So this is when the dead start like plopping themselves onto the fire barrier to create like a body mountain, pathway.
Like a bridge thing.
Yeah, body bridge. And I'm like, oh my God, this is hardcore. But that shot looking at the Night King with his hand in the foreground and his face all blurry was just like the most gangster shot.
And the sound was all muffled and...
Yeah, so good. So many just epic moments in this episode. So the body bridges are being formed by the whites as they're just piling onto each other and putting out the fire in little bits. And Davos like sees what's happening and he's like, fuck. Preparing everybody to like, man the walls or whatever they're yelling and getting all the archers ready. Yeah, man the walls. And Jon sees the Night King and launches on Rhaegal to go attack. And this just as the heroes are lining the battlements and the dead are breaching the trenches. And the dead start like climbing up on top of each other, World War Z style.
Oh, yeah.
Like just like I predicted, till they reach the top of the battlements of the walls of Winterfell. That is huge. Those are tall walls. I mean, in the show, they're not quite as tall as they are in the books, but it's still a fortress,
It's a fortress, yeah.
Yeah. And, everybody's, man the walls, they're coming, they're against the wall, fill the gaps. And they start climbing up and oh my God, they're like hitting the dragon glass that they have embedded at the battlements on the crenellations now and bursting into like just death and like disintegrating as they hit the top. And then all the fighters are poking them with their swords and the dragon glass too, just sending them tumbling down.
Gendry had a good hit with his, just boom.
Oh yeah. One guy gets dragged backwards down and tumbles down the mountain of whites into the crowd, which is crazy. And he's like, It's so good. And just chaos is happening on top of the battlements. Gendry, it shows Gendry, and he's like holding his sword or his weapon, and he's kind of like going like this, like bouncing in anticipation.
He's ready.
Yeah, he's like just ready to fucking crack those guys as they start breaching the top of the walls. Jaime gets pinned up against the crenellation here with like three whites like all like gnashing at his face, and at the last second Brienne saves him, and then there's like an amazing moment. It reminded me of Kylo Ren and Rey in The Last Jedi, was it? Yeah, The Last Jedi, where Snoke is trying to like kill Rey and he's got her like in like under force control, and Kylo Ren kills Snoke with a lightsaber, twists it on the chair, and then right. And Rey and Kylo Ren are back to back, fighting against all of Snoke's honor guard with their red outfits. These two people who were like enemies at one point, now back to back, fighting to help each other and save each other, working together. Just like Jaime and Brienne, who were like adversaries at one point in time, now they're back to back, fighting with each other on top of the battlements against the dead. It's just so powerful. And there
was a moment too when like you saw Sam out there freaking out and Jorah grabs him and gets him out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, Sam, why are you here? You fucker,
liability. You already cost us Ed. Just go to the crypts. Stay in the house, Carl. And and so like Jaime and Bran are back to back, backlit, and they're just like a shadow pair fighting the undead around them, and it's just so beautiful. And then Sam is standing there on top of the walls, and the dead start just pouring out over the top at this one spot, and they break through the fence and just start dumping down into the courtyards. And they're running through the courtyards and coming upon those barriers, those barricades with the obsidian spikes embedded into them, and they're just disintegrating. Yeah, so cool. And the Hound is freaking out here. Again, we see him like, like, you know, with the fire like reflecting in his eyes and all this stuff in the background. And he's just shell-shocked, like zoned out, not even like comprehending anything. It's horrifying. Like, it's really sad. Like he's completely,
he's just, like he couldn't move even if he wanted to.
Yep. It's like when that flaming undead bear came at him beyond the wall, and he froze and resulted in Thoros' death. He's just frozen here. He's shell-shocked, like real PTSD. And then it cuts to Arya. Of course, from the Hound cuts to Arya. And she starts rampaging with her new weapon. Yeah. The double-ended, like Johnny Stitches said, Archmaester Stitches, he compared it to
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul's, his double-ended lightsaber. She's like, like lightsabering all these guys with her wicked-ass dragon glass weapon that Gendry made. And so we were trying to figure out what the purpose of it was based on the diagram, that detachable thing. It turns out that the detachable thing is so that she can turn it in from a two-sided staff into two separate staffs. It detaches in the middle, So it's like she has these two weapons, like Muay Thai stick style all of a sudden. If she had knelt down to the ground and gone whoosh with the sticks, I would have been like, oh my God, coolest thing ever. Like a Tony Jaa Muay Thai reference would have been epic if they did that, but they didn't, but it would have been cool. I'm going to superimpose that clip over so people know what I'm talking about. So she is just like, she's just going at it. And we get an upbeat symphonic version of Arya's music. You know, like that ascending mystical scale that we've gotten with various like different instrumentation, like almost like xylophone style. We've gotten it before. Now it's a full symphonic version. Dun, 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 dun. And like, I was like, wow, like this, we'd never heard it like that before. So it's like the full version of the song now. It's really intense to hear that after hearing the mystical, whimsical version so many times. Yeah. And she dispatches like a whole crew of whites and with this like fantastic spinning move. And she's like, oh, and this pose. And then it like the camera, the focus goes from her to Davos, who had just like got to the bottom of the steps behind her. And he's just like, oh my God, just like amazed. He's a terrible fighter. He's not a fighter, but she's a fighter. And he's just like blown away that this little girl, this like little tiny girl is just so good. And then speaking of little tiny girls, it cuts to Lady Lyanna Mormont, legendary little Lady Lyanna Mormont, quadruple L. And she's like organizing down there still, doing her thing, fighting. And all of a sudden, boom, for the second time in a very short relatively span of time, a giant busts through the front doors of Winterfell. One did it just like very recently at the Battle of the Bastards. So Winterfell hasn't seen giants in thousands of years, if ever, right? And then all of a sudden, within the span of like 2 months, two giants bust through the front door at Winterfell. Just like crazy. So it comes busting through, and there's a hilarious shot of Lyanna Mormont kind of like staggering at an angle in shock as the giant comes through. And
she played that so well, like just, oh man, her body language was great.
So good, yeah, so good. And it was like that scene in Old School with Will Ferrell when he gets drugged. And he starts walking towards the pool and he's like, get her out of my way, and like claws this little kid's face and just like launches him aside and goes tumbling into the pool with the cake. Or like that moment in Half Baked when Sir Smoke-A-Lot's like, the doctor says I need a backiotomy. Get away from me, bitch! And like grabs this girl by her face and like tosses her aside, claws her whole face. The giant comes through the door here and just swipes aside little Lady Lyanna Mormont, and she just like gets launched to the side, and everybody collectively freaked out because everybody loves Lady Lyanna Mormont, right? So I'm sure
that's like the one person aside from fucking royalty that you don't fuck with.
Yeah. Fucking crazy. So the Chuck Norris of Game of Thrones, you could say.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So she, everybody like gasps at that moment, and then it cuts away to something else. Oh, to Arya. This is when she dives over that body pile and like rolls down
Yes,
And
I think that might be my favorite move of the whole thing when she rolls over those guys.
There was
that was badass.
Yeah, and in the game revealed, they showed a few different shots of her doing it, like in the takes that it took to get the final shot. And she had just mentioned that she probably holds the record on set for the most apologies because she keeps she's doing all these stunt scenes and like the blades are like she like lets go and it's like flying through the air. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like diving over these whites, which are like actors, stuntmen.
Right.
And she's like, landing on them and rolling over them. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. As she gets like caught halfway down and like nails these guys. So funny.
If you haven't seen that featurette, you have to go see it. Yeah. It's on the app and you can find it online. It's so good. It's so worth watching.
Yeah, we posted it on a GOM page as well, facebook.com/GOM podcast. The game revealed. It's like a 40-minute special about behind the scenes making this episode. 40 minutes. It's awesome. Oh, man. Normally those game revealed things are like 5-10 minutes. This thing is like 40 minutes.
The ones this season have been like around 20 minutes, like 15, 20 minutes.
This is the first one I've seen so far this season, so I got to go back and watch
They release them the next morning after each episode.
Oh.
They've been releasing them.
Nice. Good to know. So then it cuts back to the courtyard and rising from the ground. Lady Lyanna Mormont. Oh my God, she stands up with that axe in her hand and her head's like kind of cocked to the side and she just lets out a battle cry, like roars like the bear that she is. There's an amazing piece of
battle cry here.
Yeah, this guy Richard Pace did an amazing rendition of this on oh my God. It's a black and white drawn picture of Lyanna Mormont letting out her battle cry with her eyes closed and her mouth open and the axe raised, and outside and around her is a bear like House Mormont doing the same thing, letting out a big roar. It's just a fantastic piece of art. I posted it and tagged the artist and everything. It's gotten like 200 shares from our page and like hundreds of likes. It's like, oh my God, it's such a great piece of art. And so she lets out her war cry and starts charging the giant. Oh my God. And we get like her running and like a close up of the camera trucking backwards as she is running with the axe raised. Giving her a scream, and then it cuts from her perspective and we see the giant and he turns around holding a giant piece of wood, and I thought for a split second I thought he was just gonna go whack and golf swing her and just send her launching right out of Winterfell right over the walls. Would have mirrored that guy who got hit with the giant's arrow at Battle of Castle Black, right? Who gets launched over the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Love that.
I don't want to see that happen to our girl.
I know. But for a split second, I thought it was going to happen. I was sure. And then he lets go of the piece of wood and it's dangling in his left hand and he reaches down towards the camera with his right hand and scoops up little Lady Lyanna Mormont. And he's lifting her up and you can hear like her chest plate and everything starting to crunch and like her torso is being crunched under the weight of this giant as he's squeezing her with his hand and like looking right at her and like they're like making eye contact. And he it seems like he starts to like move her towards his face like he's going to eat her, like he's going to bite her. And she must have dropped the axe because she reaches to her belt or something and just produces a dragon glass dagger out of nowhere and just slams it right in his eye. Oh man, that was like the coolest shit ever. And instantly the giant just like you can see like he stops, like his animation just goes away and just goes limp and just fucking choke slams Lyanna whack onto the ground as he falls. She did. Fuck. She deyoed.
In the best possible fucking way, man.
Yeah, they really made her, like they gave her like a spectacular finish. And again, referring back to the game revealed documentary piece that they released, the section with the actress, I think they said her name's Bella. who plays Lady Lyanna Mormont, and she's talking about it. She just seems like the coolest fucking kid ever, man.
She was loving it. She was like, I get to go out like this, and I'm like, she was so game.
When I found out that I die, I was so excited. Yeah. She's like, I wanted one of two things. One, I could sit on the Iron Throne, but I thought that was kind of unlikely. So I was hoping for an awesome death. You know, that's exactly what I would be hoping for if I was on the show. You know, like
this girl's got her priorities straight.
Rip me to shreds, you know, like make it like something cool, man. And so she was just a super champ about it, and like I really like have a lot of respect for that actress. I think she's gonna be
And they show you the whole
fantastic.
process of it too, of how they created that and all the work she did. It's so good.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh my God. Yeah. Just amazing. Wow. So then it cuts back to Beric, who's like simultaneously like kind of fighting, but also like looking back at a hound like, hey, you know, snap into it, dude. Like we need you. Yeah. Click in. We need you. You know, you can't give up on us. And you can see how just hopeless he is. Fuck off. Defeated. We can't beat them. Don't you see that, you stupid whore? You know, we're fighting death. They can't beat death. You know, and in a moment of fate where the hound is in his worst place that he's been since we've seen him, basically, and Beric is just begging him to snap into it. Yeah, Arya dives over the edge of the battlements and slides partially down the snow-covered angled roof of this building. Yeah, and the whites are just sliding past her, gnashing at her and grabbing at her. And the hound's like, they can't beat death, you know, and Beric just points, tell her that. You know, it's like, oh my God. And the hound looks up and like his neck like wrenches over to see Arya, and his eyes widen. And it made me think of, you know, last episode when Arya was, you know, vocalizing her disappointment with the hound. And she's like, what are you even doing here? When was the last time you fought for anybody but yourself? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I fought for you, didn't I? Really powerful moment.
Perfect. That's perfect.
And then here he looks up and sees her and realizes again he's got to fight for Arya. And it doesn't even hesitate. Like the second he sees that Arya is in danger, he forgets about himself. He forgets about like everything that's holding him back. And he realizes that he still has a purpose, that this girl that he cares about, that he's fought so hard to protect, that he died for, basically, is in danger again. And he has the opportunity to try to protect her. And he immediately acts and moves forward. And he just
goes, yeah.
Yeah, he just goes. I fucking love it, dude. I love the relationship between Arya and the Hound.
Me too.
It's one of my most favorite duos from the show, for sure. Like I keep saying, we want that spin-off, the Arya and the Hound spin-off series, their adventures, you know, but before...
I want novellas like Duncan Egg, just Arya and the Hound.
Arya and the Hound. They're like such a cool combo, you know?
They could totally do that. They were together for so long. Right. They could totally write some short stories about them.
Come up with some webisodes or something, you know, just like 5-minute little like mini episodes of Arya and the Hound with just little things that they happened in between that cave with the Band of Brothers and the Red Wedding and the Eyrie. You know, there's so many things that could have happened. It'd be great. It'd be Emmy award winning. So at this point, we see Arya has crawled through the window on the slanted roof, and she ends up inside of Winterfell. But before we get to there, it cuts back to Dany and Jon as they're chasing the Night King. Rising through the fog, the Night King, you can see Viserion's tail like whipping through the fog behind, and they're chasing him, and they lose sight of him, and they come flying through the cloud cover into open air above. And it reminded me of, actually, it didn't remind me of anything, but it reminded other people of things, and they mentioned it, and now I know about it. So now it reminds me something, I don't remember this specific scene, something from How to Train Your Dragon, where people like on dragons go up through the cloud cover and they're like hovering for a second.
Yeah.
And then
it's very like mystical and
and we totally get that vibe here, you know.
Yeah.
But the cooler of the two references that Johnny Stitches mentioned this to me. There's a scene in the Michael Keaton version of Batman where it's just like this. You see the moon up in the sky and empty air and then the cloud cover and the circular shaped bat craft, like the bat plane thing that
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Comes flying up through the cloud cover and hovers right in front of the moon. You get that perfect bat logo symbol in the moon, and then it just drops right back downwards. Yeah. So that was like, I feel like Johnny Stitches nailed that. I feel like this has to be like a reference to that. And it's exactly
one,
so good. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. He sent me a video and everything. I'm going to put it over, superimpose it on this. But
nice.
They come flying through the cloud cover and the Night King is gone. And if he's gone, that means he dropped down and is now behind you. You should know it immediately because you can see everything for miles around you the second you come out of that cloud cover. So turn around, but they don't realize that. They're like, huh, where is he? And all of a sudden he just like comes emerging through the cloud cover, launching blue flames at Dany. And Drogon takes off.
That's so cool too. The way that, like we were saying, that just lick her barely.
Just licking on her, and like, oh my God. Yeah, and she's panicking. Like you can see Daenerys is freaking out. The look in her face.
Like full on
her expressive eyebrows. Yeah, full on Dany eyebrows. And she's like, like her face is all freaking out and everything. And Drogon is panicking himself. And Viserion is like comparable to Drogon in size at this point, it seems. Terrifyingly, and is potentially even more powerful now with the ice magic combined with the fire magic. And so he's shooting the fire at Drogon and Dany, and we get more epic close-ups of Viserion's face. Whoa, like amazing.
Just like ripped.
Yeah.
I saw when his jaw got ripped off that time. I didn't notice it the first time.
There was a shot when he was taken down the wall at the end of last season where it's like, and it's just like close up on his face as he's like going back and forth, and it's making this like weird clicking sound, and then you get it again here as he's just like launching the flames.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's a really creepy sound. Really well done. Whatever they did to make that sound, like, good work, Foley artists.
That's one of the best parts, especially when they do Dracarys and they're breathing the fires, and that build up to it is like, oh.
Yeah. Totally. And so
I'll figure it out.
So the Night King like freaks her the fuck out. Dany is like freaked out, and as soon as she's like flying away and she's not like stopping anytime soon, the Night King like changes modes, and Viserion like tucks his wings in, and like that bat symbol, like that bat craft, the bat plane just dips straight downward and just free fall velocity, 9.1 meters per second cubed, just or is it 9.7? I don't know. I'm losing my random knowledge. But just free fall acceleration, just flying down through the clouds. And then Jon and Dany kind of like regroup above the cloud cover there again. And they're like, oh God, this is fucking.
They're looking at each other like
this is fucked. Like, I don't know, like if we're going to make it through this type thing. And then in tandem, they just both, like the dragons do the same thing. They just tuck their wings in, and it looks just like that bat logo. And they just descend through the fog. Oh my God, amazing. And just how the
music too. The music is just like, it adds to the intensity of it. You're just feeling so like, like you're on a ride.
So good. Amazing music all throughout this series.
This has to win something.
He has to.
Has to.
So they sort of started off the episode at odds with each other and not necessarily on the same page about their attack strategy and everything like that. But now they're in tandem. They're together, and they dip down together and dive hard through the fog. And it cuts back to Arya, who's now like inside of Winterfell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she creeps through like a doorway, and we it's interesting. We never really have seen too much of the interior of Winterfell, but I've always wanted to, because I love castles and love stonework, and I'm always just fascinated by like the passages going through castles, and like how there's always like hidden passages and everything like that. Like I'm a weirdo. When I've played certain video games like Halo, where they have like Forge mode or something, I end up building these massive structures with all these secret passages and stuff. Like I built a pyramid in Minecraft just to show off for my friend's 6-year-old son. But I ended up like going so hard on it. I built like this massive pyramid and like these giant castles, like a castle underwater inside of a glass pyramid that holds out, like all the waters. Like I built like crazy stuff, and like a giant pyramid that's partially underground. And then the only way you can get to it is like a giant granite labyrinth that you have to traverse to get through it. Like and there's actually 2 labyrinths that never connect with each other. I like went all like way like kind of crazy on it and like totally blew his mind. I like that your brain works that way. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to build our castles. I should upload a video of it because it's just so cool. Love that whole thing that I made. So Arya ends up in the library. And you got to be quiet in the library. Can't make too much noise in the library. People are reading, or you don't want to disturb the dead in this case. So true to form, Arya's being real quiet in the library, creeping around, hiding up against the bookshelves. I keep thinking, climb the bookshelves and get out of there. Climb up.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Yeah. So she's doing that whole Splinter Cell thing, uses the book to distract him. There's this one.
Oh, this was my Jurassic Park. This is the one where I was like, this is Jurassic Park. This is the velociraptors in the freezer.
Yeah, and the door handles and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the reflection, like smashing into the freezer because he thinks it's a kid, but it's a reflection. And and so there's this one walker, which they point out in the Game Revealed documentary. Some French performance artist who's like a contortionist. Yeah. It's that guy that kneels down to look under the table for her. We see him all throughout the scene, like very creepy, eerie movements. I think it was a good casting for that. Really great casting.
He's really like skinny, like
yeah, he's got the physique of a white, like, for sure.
Been dead for a long time, kind of white.
No offense, brother.
Oh, it works for him. He's making money off of it.
Yeah, he's cool with it. And so she hides under the table, and he creeps down and looks under at her, and she's gone somehow. And like it's like the distance between his eyes being above those 2 inches of wood and below those 2 inches of wood. Somehow she wasn't visible either. I don't know. Yeah. Physically, I don't know how that works, but I'll accept it just for the fun. So she throws the book and ends up like there. She's like moving through it, like navigating through this whole library as the undead are like all around her. It's pretty intense, but she distracts them.
She's amazing too. Maisie was amazing in this scene. Her eyes, just the way she's drinking everything in that's around her, looking where everyone is.
She's like taking in her breaths. Yeah, really in it, and like seemed like she was really there and like legit. It's really good. And so she throws the book, creeps through a doorway. And slowly pushes back on the door. And it just made like, it just must have made like the tiniest little bit of noise. And it wasn't even the whites in that room that like first reacted. It was apparently whites in another room because they come busting through the door. Oh, yeah, not a door that we expected them. Yeah. And she freaks out. And then they bust through the door that she just came out of. And she like, obviously she must have had another means of egress because she goes running towards the camera and down a hallway. And it's at this point where she like is in a fucking maze, basically, of Winterfell. Luckily, she knows her way around this maze because she spent her childhood here.
It makes us so fucking uncomfortable. I was just like she keeps getting these new turns, and I'm like, dear God, I keep thinking she's hitting the dead end.
Yep, and that's the other thing I love too is mazes. I built a giant maze in Halo for a level. Like I said, the 2 labyrinths, in Minecraft, like. Mazes are fucking cool. So this whole time I'm geeking out, I was
going to say, this is like your jam.
Fun. Yeah. And she's running through all the halls and they're just like coming from all directions. And she'll like turn around one corner and be like, nope, can't go that way. And like turn around and run the other way. And I'm like, oh my God. It's just so
like,
intense.
Just the way they look, they're scurrying and freaking out right behind her. They're just on her.
Oh, and we forgot to mention, she does stab one woman in the head in the library.
Oh, that's right.
She comes around the corner and like, yeah, she's just face to face. Yeah, instantly stabs her. And as yeah, and she like pulls the knife out and like you can see the woman's jaw like collapse and just blood starts coming out and she like falls right on Arya black. And it's just like, ugh, so gross. Great job there. I love that moment too.
It was so good.
So Arya running through the maze of Winterfell here kind of reminded me of her experience in King's Landing, chasing cats, running through the alleyways and sneaking off. And then she's got to like hide in the crypts as Illyrio and Varys are going by, and she's like hiding. And
she eavesdrops on that.
Yeah, and then she sneaks through the labyrinth of the black passageways underneath the Red Keep and comes out in the fucking drainage tunnel outside of the wall. I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of that, like sneaking through like alleyways and passages. And this is when it cuts back down to the crypt and there's the slaughter outside of the doors.
Oh, and the soldiers screaming, open
the door. Don't open the door. Don't open the door.
Yeah, right.
But it's kind of like that moment where all the Dothraki get killed because we know they're dying, but we can't see what's happening, and it makes it all the more freaky. It's
and
also,
then, I mean, the look on Sansa's face is just like, she was so conflicted. She didn't know what to do. She knows what she wanted to do, but I just felt bad for her. Her face was like sad.
So sad. Yeah. And man, it's brutal. And it's also kind of like that scene at Hardhome where they close the gates and then the mist is coming down from the mountains and all of the people are banging, trying to get through the gates, but they've closed them. And then all of a sudden, all the banging stops, and the Magnar of Then walks up and peers through a little hole in the gate, and it's just gone. Everybody's gone, and we don't know like what happened. It's kind of like, it kind of reminded me of this, same type thing. Then they'll just rush to get the gate. Love that. And so now it cuts to the Hound and Beric as they're creeping through the halls, working together, looking for Arya. And I do like the duo of Beric and the Hound as well. Odd couple. You wouldn't expect them to be together, but Beric just feels drawn to the Hound. You can tell. Like
they never seem to get to a point where they like each other very much, but it just works.
Unfortunately, yeah. Like it's almost like the Hound is just always so abrasive and horrible that I feel like Beric, like it almost becomes endearing to Beric at a point.
It does. He just brushes it off like, okay.
Right, because he's insulting him in the last episode. Yeah, exactly. Silly Hound.
Hound.
Give him a noogie. Like at the end of the last episode when Arya briefly meets the Hound upon the battlements and then the Beric shows up and the Hound's like, the Lord of Light will wonder why he brought you back 19 times just for me to chuck you off this fucking wall, like he's insulting him, but then he tosses him the wineskin and they're like, takes the wineskin, drinks. It's like they have like, that's like part of their friendship is like this, like assholeness, it's part of the dynamic that they've both come to expect. But it is interesting, that the Hound is right there when Beric dies.
Well, wasn't that one of the last things that Arya says? Like, what was it? Like, in the last episode, like, I don't want to spend my last moments with
you miserable shits.
Yeah.
Miserable old shits.
Who is she with?
Yeah, true. In his last moments. It's true, yeah.
It's crazy.
So they're like kind of wandering through the halls and they hear something and all of a sudden the door bashes through. And Arya is just on her back. With white coming down on her. And Beric just instinctively takes his flaming sword and just throws it and it boom, impales the white.
Love it.
Fucking gangster. That was so cool. That flaming sword flying through the air. And like, oh man, it was just so great.
Just how fast he did it too. He just instant. And man, what a dangerous move. That's a long blade. If that thing isn't pointing perfectly horizontally when it hits that white or gets to that point, it could have easily taken out Arya in the rotation as it's spinning, So he runs up and grabs her and like throws her to the Hound and immediately starts getting stabbed by the whites, like right through his armor and shit. And I'm like, oh my God, he's just getting repeatedly stabbed over and over. And the Hound's like, come on, we gotta go. He's like
pushing Arya along, and Beric is like stumbling behind him. And at one point, Arya sees that Beric is overrun, and she grabs an axe, an obsidian axe, and returns to help him. And she's fighting off these wights around him. And Beric is like momentarily free again, and he pushes her along, and the hound picks her up at this point and starts carrying her along. And as Beric is stumbling away, he has his Jesus moment where he starts holding like the walls and holding back the wights behind him. And he's got his arms outstretched to like Jesus on the cross, and they're just stabbing him in the guts. Yeah. Just like Jesus being like impaled through the ribs, right? They're stabbing him right in the ribs as he's in the crucifix position. And I was just like, oh man, like right on, like pretty on the head with that one. The imagery they're showing us, giving his life for the sins of Arya and the Hound, for life. And so they come rushing into the great hall, and somehow Beric manages to catch up with them, and he just collapses into the room and just falls right over around the corner and is just in really rough shape, like imminently dying. Arya comes running around to him and kneels down, and before he can even get out a word, he starts like moving his mouth and just, and just dies. And all of a sudden, the Hound and Arya realize, as words ring out from behind them, that Melisandre is in the same room. And she's like, the Lord brought him back for a purpose. Now that purpose has been served, right? And I've been saying all along that his purpose was going to be to save the Hound.
Yep.
And he did, not quite in the way that I predicted. I thought the Hound was going to die, and Beric was going to pass his life to the Hound and resurrect him. But he did save the Hound here, and he did put his life on the line to save both Arya and the Hound, fulfilling the extent to largely my prophecy about Beric, that Beric was a placeholder for the Hound, So he not only, it's like a dual function saving here. He saves Arya, who's going to kill the Night King, and he saves the Hound, who's probably going to have to kill the Mountain so that anybody can get anywhere near Cersei.
Yeah. That's the hope.
Yeah, that is the hope for sure. Clegane Bowl 2019.
Has to.
Yeah. So I was interested by this too. Melisandre sees things in the future. She's seen herself atop the battlements of Winterfell. She's seen that Arya would shut eyes, brown, green, blue. I wondered if Melisandre knew that she needed to be in this room for this moment, because she
was just sitting there,
just waiting for Arya, it seemed, right? So Arya shows up and she, puts the Beric's death in perspective, and Arya turns to her and she's like, oh my God, like, I know you. And Mel's like, I know you. Right? Arya's like, you said we'd meet again. And here we are at the end of the world. I'm like, oh my God, this is so nuts. And Arya, again, bringing up what she said. She's like, you said I'd shut many eyes forever. You're right about that too. And this has to be good for Melisandre, because she's been so wrong about so many things. She lost her faith and her confidence. And so it must be good to hear that she's been right about a couple things. Like she was right about Arya.
She's all me.
Yeah. So she's like, you were right about that too. And Melisandre, brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes. And blue eyes, and Arya's thinking, and we know that the Whites have blue eyes, and that the White Walkers have blue eyes, and that the Night King has blue eyes. And man, that she'd shut many eyes. She has the opportunity to shut many, 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 many blue eyes here.
All the eyes.
All the blue eyes, except Tormund. Yeah, exactly. I've always had blue eyes.
I've always had blue eyes.
So she's like, oh my God. And she's like kind of thinking about that line, like the blue eyes and the brown eyes and the blue eyes. I think it's like sort of starting to sink in. And then, you know how these red priestesses have a way of knowing important things that have been said to people in the past, like how Kinvara knew about the way that Varys was cut. Remember? And she was like, you want to know what the voice said that spoke to you from the flames? You know, and Varys is like terrified by that. They know these things that they like shouldn't know, you know, or the way that Melisandre even had said to Jon, she mimicked Ygritte, and she was like, you know nothing, Jon Snow. When he turned down her advances on him, she's standing in the doorway and said that, and Jon was like, oh my God. So she kind of does the same thing to Arya here. Something that was said to Arya in an important moment that Melisandre shouldn't know anything about. She says, you know, there's this great moment. They're all like lined up in a V formation. Arya in the front, and Melisandre and the Hound behind, as they're waiting for the whites to break through this door, basically. And Melisandre says it. What do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
Not today, motherfucker. And
so good.
So good. So good. It's a particularly significant moment, too, that, I mean, what was the context when that was said last to Arya by Syrio Forel, right? It's at a moment.
Was that right?
Yeah. It's when Syrio dies.
Yeah.
But it's at a moment where somebody is putting their life on the line to protect Arya, and they're telling her to get out of here and go like save yourself, do something else, go. So Melisandre says that. What did he say to the god of death? Not today. And it's like the same thing. She realizes that the Hound is going to be there fighting the people coming into the room, just the way that Syrio was there fighting Meryn Trant as he is giving her time to escape. She realizes that she needs to like get out of there and focus on her mission.
Well, that's what she does. She knows the things that rouse the people when they need to be roused.
Yep.
She knew the line.
She knew the line. And oh my God, it was just so intense that evoking Syrio Forel in this moment and bringing back Arya's sense of purpose and her training and reminding her what her goal is and what her mission is, and the mention of blue eyes that she can shut forever.
Where she started.
Yeah. And it's just all full circle, and goddamn, it's just like, it's all just so poignant, you know, like everything here is so important. And so Arya turns and starts walking off, and the Hound is like, what the hell's going on here? And they both turn like, where is she going? And she starts running as she like, as everything is solidifying and codifying in her mind, and she's realizing what she needs to do.
She's putting it together.
And the music starts to swell, and then it cuts to Theon as he's fending off attackers for Bran. And or he's about to, at least. All the whites, he's rallying the Ironborn and telling them, make every shot count. And there's this overhead shot as whites just come rushing Theon, and you see him launch a fire arrow into one white, but they're like so close on him. It's like I don't know how he survived. Movie magic. Those
arrows were badass too. They like the little sparks, the blue sparks that flew every time he shot at someone.
Nice. I missed that. Cool. I'll have to look.
There's like these little blue sparks that come out like it's affecting them, and they're
sick.
So cool.
So this is when it cuts back to the Night King as he decides to descend on Winterfell, finally. And he swoops down and just blasts with the Viserion a massive hole through the wall, and one of the Winterfell's towers just destroys it and comes flying through. And all of a sudden, Rhaegal is on him, and Jon is on him, and there's a dragon fight in midair. God. And the dragons are slashing at each other with their claws, and it's
this is where they,
oh God, it's so hard to tell, like who's hitting who and who's injured, right?
Yeah, everyone's scratching at each other. That's what I remember.
Yeah, scratching and biting, and at one point, Viserion literally bites Jon's cloak off of his back.
Yeah.
He bites and it comes ripping off. And I was like, oh my God, that was a close call. Like inches if he was close enough to bite the fur, but not Jon.
Not Jon,
Inches. Millimeters, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, this is just insane as they're fighting in midair.
Too close.
And tumbling and biting each other. And Rhaegal bites Viserion's head and rips half of his face off, like you mentioned. And I was like rewinding, like to see who was hurting who. And And just so vicious. And then out of nowhere, Dany and Drogon come swooping in, and Drogon's landing gear, his legs come out and just pluck the Night King like right off of Viserion's back. And just like Bran fell from the tower, or Jaime sank into the Blackwater Rush, the Night King just falls back, sinks through the air calmly with like, it's so
like he's done
eerie.
it a billion times.
Right. And Drogon continues to savage Viserion as Rhaegal goes screaming and landing to the ground, and it's just horrifying as he's like in pain and is running as he lands and just collapses into the ground, and Jon comes tumbling off, and oh my God. And Dany and...
I mean, he rolls far, like...
Who, Drogon or Jon? Yeah, totally.
I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, and Drogon and Viserion and Dany are in like a death spiral as they're like, the dragons are like intertangled, tumbling through the sky, wrapped up in each other. And Drogon is just biting on Viserion's neck, like he's just got his neck like locked in between his jaws. And I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. And I feel like, I think I noticed that Rhaegal even had like tears in his wings, kind of like the undead dragon.
I think he did, yeah.
He looked very like badly injured, which is never good to see. And so Dany, something happened. We don't see what happens between Drogon and Viserion, but Viserion must escape and ride off, because next we see is Dany hovering, and she descends over the top of the Night King. And the Night King's just standing there. And we're like, oh my God, this is happening, right? They had asked if he would be killed, but if he could be killed by dragonfire just in the past episode, right? 1 or 2 episodes ago. And Dany just looks down at him, and they make eye contact, and she just says it, Dracarys. And Drogon just unleashes massive gout of fire and just engulfs the Night King. And this is that moment from The Last Jedi, Star Wars Episode 8, where the Imperial Walker they all aim their lasers together at Luke Skywalker and just blast him.
Yeah.
and then
to no avail.
Yeah, and there's just like a giant cloud of dust, and in this case, a just ball of flames.
Fire.
And as the fire fades away, the Night King is just still standing there, still strong, unaffected. And he just kind of like grins up at Dany. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. He smiled. I was like, fuck you.
And the way he tilts his head too throughout the whole is just like,
yeah. Yep. Like when he tells Jon, come at me, he like kind of cocks his head like the Joker almost. It's
yeah, he does. And with Bran too.
So
when he's looking
serious.
at Bran at the end, he kind of does this little like quick
head cock thing. Interesting.
I don't know what. Freaks me out though. I don't even know what it means, but it freaked me out. If it was like the actor that added something to the character, it works. Whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So Dany freaks out and Drogon freaks out as the Night King reaches and grabs another ice spear and starts to launch it at Drogon and just barely misses him. Oh man, that was close. So close. Too close for comfort. And they fly off, and Jon had fallen off Rhaegal close by. So he's been like approaching basically this whole time, and he sees the Night King alone, and the Night King just calmly starts strolling towards Winterfell, just walking along, so calm, not a care in the world. And Jon unsheaths Longclaw and starts running after him, and he must hear him because he turns around, right? And stops and immediately just raises his hands and cocks his head. Oh my God. And Jon, he turned around and they both sort of stopped. Yeah, they remember each other. And then he lifts his arms, and Jon remembers that moment from the dock and what happened. And he's like, fuck, and starts running forward. And the dead are just popping up.
And he's looking back and forth as they're coming at, as they're starting to move. You can see him like, oh shit.
Yeah, and his pathway to the Night King is just becoming more and more obfuscated and blocked by these whites as they're all rising. And we get Ed, his eyes turning white. We get Lyanna Mormont, her eyes turning white. We get Dany's lead blood rider, And I think he actually is crawling on Drogon at the, like, trying to stab her.
I saw that.
Yeah, he gets launched off of Drogon. It's horrifying. And so Jon's trying to rush the Night King, but the dead are just, there's just too many of them. And I'm like, fuck, Jon's fucked. He's totally surrounded. Like, he's fucked.
They're just standing there at first, too.
Yeah,
like,
they're all just standing, waiting for the command by the Night King. I guess he's like, he raises them and then he's like, activate, and they all just start
and then he walks
closing
off.
on Jon. Yeah, and he just walks off casually. And Jon, he would have said, well, your people fight for you when they see you won't fight for them. But in this case, yeah, they will, because they're powered by necromancy. So the Night King just walks off and they keep fighting.
The sentiment doesn't work here, unfortunately.
Exactly. Didn't work with Ramsay either.
That's true.
Worth a shot. But Jaime is fighting in the courtyard and stops as the dead all start to rise around him. And everybody's like, oh my God, like, no, this can't be happening.
Everyone's like fucking like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Like, we just killed all these people. And now our friends are with them? God damn.
And they just look spent. They look so spent, man. They just look like there's no way.
Right.
There's no way.
And it's like people who they were just fighting with are now fighting against them.
I just killed you.
Yeah, or like we just
got killed.
We were just working together. Yeah. And now like they're fighting. And the White Walkers that were out by the woods when Jon tried to burn them before but got interrupted by the fog. They're all walking towards Winterfell in a V formation now, in the Mighty Ducks formation, strolling in. And this is when the dead start to stick their hands through the walls of the crypts. And who sees it first?
I think it's Gilly.
Gilly, yeah.
Or the little girl, one of them.
Gilly's like, what the fuck?
I think it was Gilly.
Yeah, I think it was Gilly.
Like,
and all these dead just start coming out, and it's just not good. And this, like, Jon is being swamped by all those whites, and all of a sudden, Drogon Ex Machina appears out of nowhere and starts roasting all of the whites around Jon. And, oh man, it's like he's just sitting there, parked on the ground, just roasting all around him. And he stops for a second, and it's just like that whole area all around Jon is just scorched earth. Mm-hmm. I'm talking scorched earth, motherfucker.
I am talking scorched earth, motherfucker.
And we are Flaming Dragon. Tropic Thunder. And Tom Cruise. Gotcha. And Jon's like, Bran. He tells Dany, like, I got to go to Bran. And she's like, go. She should have been like, hop on, I'll fly you there. But, you know, aside from yeah, you can't make things too easy. He's trying to be
the hero this whole episode. He's like, it's me. I'm the hero. I'm the hero.
Right. I liked how they sort of like played on, like joked about that in the game revealed thing too. He's like, it was supposed to be me who killed the Night King. Stupid Arya did it. Kid's all mad about it.
They're talking to Maisie, and she's like, oh yeah, I found out. I was so excited. I don't know what Jon thinks. I'm sure he likes it or something.
Yeah,
and
she was like, I'm just glad it was me and not Jon. Or me and not Kit or something.
Yeah.
So funny.
He cut to Kit. He's like, it was supposed to be me. I was the one that was supposed to. I'm pissed I didn't get to kill him.
Totally. So Dany and Drogon are sitting there for some reason after Jon goes running off. And I'm thinking, take off. You know, why are you just sitting there? And Dany's just sitting there casually, and we get a shot of like whites approaching from behind Drogon, and his tail kind of flicks him. And I thought, oh, cool.
And then she's not even paying attention.
Yeah, she's not even paying attention. You can see him like climbing up as she's just sitting there. I thought, you remember how at the loot train battle, Drogon just like whack destroyed the scorpion.
Fuck this thing.
Yeah, with his tail just
wagon.
smashed it. Fuck that wagon. I thought he was going to do that and just like whack, destroy all these whites with his tail. But he was kind of distracted too, I guess, and didn't realize they were all approaching him. And before they know it, Drogon is just being covered in whites.
Just stabbing.
Terrifying. And they're just shanking him left and right. And you can hear him squealing in pain. Oh, it's so like horrible. And Dany is like, fucked. I'm like, oh my God. Like I legit thought Dany was about to die here. Like she just saved Jon.
I thought that was done.
Yeah, I thought she was going to die. She saved Jon. She's about to get killed because Drogon can't take off. And these whites are just all over. We get that Blood Rider who's trying to stab her, like near miss, and gets launched off back to the ground. And Dany gets launched off herself. and falls to the ground just like
Drogon's
Jorah.
like,
Yeah, Drogon's like...
he like shakes him off.
Yeah, shaking his body, and like he ends up taking off into the air, and all of those whites are like clinging on to him as he's rising into the sky and flapping his wings, and he's just shaking himself, trying to get them off. Good thing Dany managed to get off of him before that, because she definitely would have gotten shaken off as he's trying to shake off all those things, you know? And it kind of made me think of the battle at Hardhome when the giant comes busting out of that hut and all of the whites are climbing all over him. Mm-hmm. And he's like picking them off and throwing them. Totally foreshadowing Drogon being swamped by whites at this point. And they're just crawling.
The CGI
all over
on that
him.
was amazing too. Just the way his skin like moved on his body. Incredible. It was like, it's so real.
I know. Like, I don't know how anybody's ever going to surpass what they've accomplished with this show. With CGI.
The attention to the detail that they have with these dragons is like, they love these dragons. Like they put a lot of love into them. I'm so glad.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of love.
I'm glad that's where a lot of the budget went, because it makes all the difference just in little things like that. Just the way the skin moved on his body was like,
totally. So I was like, oh my God, she's going to die. Here she's alone. Drogon has abandoned her, just trying to save his own skin. And like, oh, what the fuck, dude? Like, holy shit. I could not believe it, as Dany is left alone outside of the trench, outside of the walls, with nobody there to help her, and nothing. And whites are just enclosing all around her. And she's like scrambling backwards on the ground as they're like approaching. And all of a sudden, Jorah, out of nowhere, the Heartsbane just cuts down whites that are going for her. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Like, after everything, like we talked about before, everything that Jorah has gone through is leading up to this, where he can be there to save Dany when it counts. Everything he's gone through is leading up to this moment, putting his life on the line to save her. That's all he's ever wanted to do, is fight and die if necessary for his Khaleesi.
And live if necessary.
And live if necessary. Yeah, awesome. I like that. I haven't given you permission to leave. You will go find a cure. And he is just going all out to save Dany here, fighting.
His last little bit of everything.
He keeps getting stabbed and slashed, and he's like stuck on his knees at one point, and he's fighting from his knees, and we don't get the death quite yet. It cuts back to Jon as he begins to traverse the courtyard, one of the courtyards at Winterfell. And as he's walking through, whites are just spilling over the edges of the walls. Like if you're like taking a cup of water and like holding it, pulling it down underneath the water until the water just starts like spilling into the cup. It's that type of phenomenon where they're just dumping in around the edges all over the place.
And he's leaving everyone. He has to he sees everyone fighting. Everyone's in their own little battle.
Yeah. And they're all all of our heroes are like standing on mountains of corpses, just fighting to live at this point, just trying to stay alive.
And just fighting the next one that's in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And yeah, my heart shatters as Jon sees Sam, but has to leave him to go for Bran. I couldn't believe it. I was like yelling at my TV, like, you have to save Sam. You can't leave Sam, freaking out. And he realizes that he only has one path to go, and he cuts through this like covered walkway, and all these whites are like falling through the ceiling around him. And at one point, like debris lands on him and knocks him down, and he gets up and all these whites are coming at him, and he goes through this gate and closes the gate just like at the last possible moment, last nanosecond possible. And all their arms and like fingers are like coming through the gate. Right. So cool. Just
that's
scrambling.
Freaky to me, that whole like.
Yeah, totally. Reminded me of Walking Dead when the fingers are coming through the doors in the pilot episode.
Oh,
Don't open dead inside.
So good.
Yeah. And so it cuts back to Theon and the Ironborn as they're defending Bran. And I'm thinking, where the fuck is Bran through all of this? He warged out into those ravens. What is he doing now?
It's just recording.
I thought he was like maybe on like some important mission. Like he had to do something, but we don't get any idea what he's doing. Maybe he's just monitoring the Night King.
I think he's just seeing what's going on, because as soon as the battle and everything gets to where he's at, he comes back out like, oh shit, none of this worked. Everyone is basically failing.
Like he can, if he can best have a strategic effect, if he's able to witness everything that's happening and knows what's happening everywhere, he can at least like potentially pop back in and be like, get word to this person to do this, or make sure this happens because this is happening over there, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe he's just monitoring everything.
I think so.
But now...
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So Dany and Jorah are making their last stand together. Tyrion and Sansa are hiding together in the crypts behind one of those tombs at this point, and this is such a crazy moment too. Like so powerful.
No words either. No words. Like Rachel says, it's the most powerful moment.
Yeah, and they're like looking at each other, and like all hope is lost as you can see just like the dead behind them walking throughout the crypt, and you can hear the screaming in the background. And Sansa pulls out a knife, dragon glass dagger, and the way she was holding it, I thought she was gonna like harakiri, like stab herself in the gut. You know, like it looked like, to me, I was like, oh my God, she's about to commit suicide. I can see that. Like Cersei in the throne room, before like somebody else can kill her, at least she can kill herself, you know? And like, I was like, oh my God, Sansa's about to kill herself. And that's when Tyrion, like, she makes it clear, like, we need to fight, you know? And that's when Tyrion like pulls out his own knife, but he takes her hand, and like, they have this, like this beautiful moment where they're looking each other in the eyes, and he kisses her hand. And it's just like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Like if they survive this, how could they not end up a couple at this point? You know what I mean? They have to be a couple.
They have love for each other. You know it. Yeah. It's there.
So, and then like Tyrion decides to make the first move, and he like lets out a breath and turns and runs around the corner. And I was like, no, I was sure Tyrion was going to die at this point, putting himself on the line.
This is where we get that great transition too. The Tyrion to Jon. As he turns the corner, and then Jon comes out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I didn't catch that. Good.
You will now.
Yeah, I'll pay more attention next time. And so, yeah, like based on our theorizing about Tyrion being in the crypts and the dead rising in the crypts, I thought for sure Tyrion was a goner here when he runs out to try to, you know, clear the way for Sansa or whatever. I was like, fuck. And this is when...
Well, because it looked like they couldn't get through that. It looked like it was just chaos down there.
Yeah.
And from our perspective.
Right.
Like,
they had the perfect hiding spot. They should have just stayed there. Why even move?
That's what I was thinking. Just stay there.
Yeah. So then it cuts out to Jon running into the courtyard, and Viserion lands on the wall, berserking like erratically, and flames just spilling from all the holes ripped in his face and his neck and his body, just oozing out everywhere. And Jorah cuts back, and he's just being stabbed over and over and slashed, and like just fighting desperately to protect his Khaleesi.
I will cry. Like I'm not even watching the episode, and just thinking about it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, same here. Same here, man. And people are falling in the crypts. You know, little girls are being killed and dragged into the darkness by whites. And Tyrion comes running around the corner and hides in an alcove. And it just so happens that Varys is hiding in that alcove with children and the elderly. And, oh man, I did not like seeing Varys being helpless either. It made me feel really uncomfortable seeing Varys sitting there without being able to do anything. And this kind of like,
yeah, he looked
this look
pained.
in his face, yeah, it was really rough. Like, I like Varys, you know, I didn't want to see him die.
Yeah.
And this is when that music comes in that sounds like the alternate version of The Light of the Seven from that Septive Baelor explosion episode. Piano and everything. And Jon is trying to get through the courtyard and being narrowly missed by the flames.
Trying to go, looks like he's trying to go through or go like, trying to find all these different ways to get through.
Just any way to get past Viserion. And the Night King is in the Godswood now as the music gets real dark and real dire. And the Night King and Theon is defending Bran and just, oh my God, just fighting like a champion, dude. Arrows, and I think at this point he's still got his arrows, but.
Oh yeah, and then remember he reaches down and then
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He reaches for an arrow, realizes that there's none left, and starts using his bow. And then he gets a spear. And at this point, he has the spear, and he's just taking down all these guys. And like somebody's like a white's about to kill him from like over the top, and he like stabs up into him and kills him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like there's nobody else that's attacking Theon. He's killed all of them, except he hasn't. Now they're just all standing in a circle surrounding Bran, just waiting because the Night King is here. And the music's all crazy, and the whites start separating, and you can see the Night King standing there in the distance, and he walks up and like sort of stops at the edge of the crowd. And this is when Bran wakes up, and the Night King pauses here, almost as if to let Bran and Theon address each other quickly before the battle ensues. And much as the Red Viper of Dorne paused and didn't finish off the mountain when he should have, the Night King pauses here and doesn't finish off Bran. And this pause, this hesitation, is what gives Arya the time to get here and to take him out. So the Night King, for some reason, didn't just walk right up to Bran and finish him, and left like it was like almost like a moment of chivalry.
He was like studying him or something, because that's when he kind of cocks his head a little. He kind of is looking at him, and he kind of cocks his head a little tiny bit. And it's like he was studying him, or it's like they were making an agreement with each other, like this is how this is going to go down or something. I
think that's after, because Theon's still alive where I'm talking about.
Oh, that's right.
So he's pausing, waiting.
Yeah, because Theon hasn't gotten killed yet.
Yeah. It's like Arthur Dane. There's famous stories where he's fighting the Smiling Knight or something, and he keeps breaking this guy's swords over and over, and pausing to let the fighter retrieve another sword to fight with, because it's the honorable thing to do. You don't want to kill your enemy when they're disarmed. You want it to be a fair fight. Like a knight will fight with chivalry. So the Night King pauses here and lets Bran and Theon talk to each other. And it was almost like a moment of chivalry from the Night King, where he's like observing this like tradition of respect among fighters, which was really interesting to me. And then Theon, this is the moment between Theon and Bran, right? Where Bran tells him, as if like he couldn't die happy enough with Bran's forgiveness. Now Bran like tells him, Theon, you're a good man. Thank you. And it's like, oh my God, like everything is leading to this moment. And Theon turns and nods at the Night King and gives the Night King, okay, it's time to fight. And that like chivalry, the Night King steps forward at that moment to fight. And what the fuck was Theon thinking here? Like, what could he have possibly thought was gonna he was gonna win with his little dragon glass? Well, I mean, spear, whatever it was. Maybe he could have won with the dragon glass spear, but he points it right at him, runs at him, and runs from however telegraphing the whole time. I'm gonna thrust this at you. I'm gonna thrust this at you. I'm gonna thrust this at and all the Night King has to do is just parry it, and he just grabs it and snaps it with his hand, and then just brutally stabs right through Theon's gut. And just like, the metal pokes out of his armored backplate, and it's just like dripping blood and just drops to the ground. And woof, Theon is probably a goner at this point. Terrible charging attack. And Bran is now defenseless. There is nobody between, There's nobody between Bran and the Night King right now. Nobody between the Night King and Bran, I should say, as the Night King slowly starts moving again towards Bran. Oh my God. Much like Hodor. Much like Hodor protected Bran for just long enough so that Mira could get him to Benjen. And that was Hodor's mission, just keeping him alive just that long. Theon protects Bran for just long enough so that Arya can swoop in to finish him off. Theon's mission is just to keep Bran alive just long enough for Arya to show up. So I thought that was like sort of poetic, how all these people are just like just keeping Bran alive long enough. Yeah.
That's all it is. Everyone just had this purpose and everyone did it like to the T, the way they were supposed to. It's insane the way they wrote this.
Totally. And so it cuts back to Jorah, who's on his knees. And somehow, Jorah manages to rise to his feet to continue to fight for his Khaleesi. And I'm just
his love for Khaleesi.
Oh my God. Like, yes. Powering him, powered by love. And I'm just like, oh my God, just the sheer will to protect Daenerys is so powerful coming from Jorah. It's amazing. And the Night King's getting even closer to Bran, and Jon is desperately trying to pass Viserion, and Jon decides to make a Hail Mary and try to traverse the courtyard, like I mentioned before, and faces off with Viserion, and so stupidly, like he's just about to get shredded, fucking shredded. And this is the moment where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, as Bran and the Night King make eye contact and he reaches back, the White Walker's hair wisps, Arya flies in out of nowhere, and just boom! The Night King, ding dong, the Night King is dead. Yeah, that drop move.
That is the move. Whoa.
So epic. Epic. You got it. And it's fitting for the Arya, an agent of the many-faced god, to strike the final blow to the Night King, considering that he's basically undoing all the many-faced god's work. Like I said, resurrecting all these people. Interestingly, though, now it's like the prince that was promised. The whole concept of the prince that was promised is just like blown out the window. Like apparently that it never mattered. It's like those things that. Like one of the things that that George R. Martin likes to do with his books is he includes prophecies, but he makes them so that they're unreliable. People can work their whole lives based on a prophecy and then it doesn't happen. Like Rhaegar thinks for his whole life that he's the prince that was promised. And then he thinks that it's his son, it's his prince that was promised. But then like the whole thing falls apart and Rhaegar is killed and everybody dies. And little Aegon is dashed against the wall. And, Jon, he doesn't even know he has another son because Jon is born after Rhaegar dies, right? So there's all these instances of prophecies and false prophecies and
everyone looking for the prophecy and how
self-fulfilling prophecies. And Melisandre searching for prophet, like trying to make the prophecy happen and all this. And it's just interesting. Like, I guess the prince that was promised, or some of these prophecies, they're just false. They're just fever dreams. Essentially, they're not real, I guess. And it's interesting just the way things work out like that sometimes,
I still want to see how the rest of everything, you just never know. You never know how the rest of the episodes are going to pan everything out.
Right.
Just want to see the full picture.
So I had a theory a few episodes ago that Arya could pose as a White Walker, wear the face of a dead man to get close enough to the Night King to kill him. And we don't know that didn't happen. She could have been. I was
going to say that.
Yeah.
I was going to say that earlier, yeah.
She could have been posing as one of those White Walkers.
That could be exactly how she got through, she got so close.
Exactly. We may have seen the wisp from that White Walker's hair because the White Walker that was just standing next to him just started running forward all of a sudden. And pulling off of her face and just jumping at the Night King. So it's it's still possible that's what happened. Just saying. We don't know for sure that she didn't do that.
Game of Thrones, man. I'm in.
Yeah, it's kind of, you could argue that it's implied. And so the Night King drops. All of the whites in the courtyard start dropping. The whites that are climbing the walls outside of Winterfell start dropping, and the body bridges that they're building are just collapsing, and all the whites collapse. And now that Khaleesi is safe, Jorah collapses as well. And in true Game of Thrones fashion, he doesn't manage to even get out a simple I love you or Khaleesi or anything, just like Beric Dondarrion. Dany closes on him in tears, sobbing, and he dies before he can utter a single word, having completed his mission. I think in peace,
Kills me. And
I
then
know, it's
the
so
part
sad.
that kills me is Drogon when he comes
Oh my
down.
God. Yeah, because Drogon, since the day Drogon was born, Jorah was a fixture in his life. He knew Jorah, better than most people.
So he sensed that, and he senses Dany and how destroyed she is. And so he's like, it's just the way they did that was beautiful, and it's destroying me right now.
I know.
Thinking about it.
He lands and boom, and wraps his head around and kind of
cradles
pulls his
them.
wing around, and it's like almost like hugging them without touching them, but protecting them from anything that could be around. And he his head goes down, and you can tell that even Drogon is sad,
Yeah.
It's so sad. So it's pretty poetic that the cat's paw dagger was originally assigned to kill Bran, but ends up coming full circle and saving his life with Arya. It's also poetic that he gave it to Arya when he was first reunited with her, right away in the Godswood at this tree. And here it is, back with her to defend him at this tree when he needs it. And it's interesting also, Littlefinger may have been the one who initially put this dagger in play. It was his dagger, as far as we know, right? So in a way, this victory would have been impossible without Littlefinger.
That fucking Littlefinger.
Littlefinger saving the day from the grave.
By Peter fucking Baelish.
Right? That was so funny. Maybe the best thing he ever did was introducing this dagger to the to the play. Littlefinger being Littlefinger ended up saving the day. Without Littlefinger, the Night King would have won.
There would have not been chaos. No ladder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, in a way, this victory would have been impossible without Littlefinger. Hilariously. So the Hound and Melisandre emerge from the Great Hall, and the Hound kind of it's oh my God, what is happening? And he's looks kind of exhausted, leaning on his big ass axe that he's got. And Melisandre just goes straight out. She just walks right out, past the walls, past the corpses and the bodies. And Davos is hot on her trail, dagger in hand.
He's got his hand on his...
Yeah, ready for execution. And her clothes are falling off piece by piece. First, her cloak falls off.
Gets her necklace off as this is coming down very slowly, all sort of simultaneous.
Drops the necklace.
She just can't wait to die. Let's do this.
It's pretty insane. And as she takes off the necklace, the glamour must fade because Davos kind of stops dead in his tracks as her hair goes from being bright red to being bright white. And her dress starts blowing in the wind. Her dress starts to fall from her shoulders, and she just sort of she begins to topple and just drops to her knees and falls to the side. And Davos, I think, his mind is blown by this, and the Hound is like, what just happened?
Yeah, he's trying to put it together.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's it. The episode ends with Melisandre dying in the field, just as it sort of began with her arriving. Crazy, man. What a fantastic episode.
I mean, it was beautifully done. Everything about it was just poetic.
Just amazing.
And it all came back to everything that we've been watching. Everything that we've all the time we've invested in every one of these episodes, it all pays off.
And there's a lot of people,
one way or another. There's
a lot of people who are criticizing the episode, saying that a lot of things, much like Star Wars, between episode 7 and 8, all these things that J.J. Abrams did, setting up the mystery of Rey's parentage and origin, all these things were seemingly just wiped away by Rian Johnson, who apparently none of those things that J.J. Abrams set up mattered anymore. That's one of the things people are criticizing about this episode. They're disappointed because they think that a lot of the storylines that they've come to expect, things like The Prince That Was Promised, for instance, didn't come to fruition and didn't pan out. But you can be mad about that, or you can look at it as sort of typical for the Game of Thrones world. Like we were talking about how some of these prophecies are false prophecies, that they're based on nothing. They're misreadings of the flames, like Melisandre misread seeing Stannis as the prince.
It coincides perfectly with all of that.
So
really, if you think about it.
Exactly. So,
and Game of Thrones is known for not giving the fans what they want.
Or at least not what they expect.
Yeah, not what they expect. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's certainly a valid points to be said for criticism for the episode, for uprooting a lot of expectations, but there's certainly valid reasons and for backing it and saying that it makes sense happening the way it happened. So overall, I think that it's been a really divisive episode. The fan base seems to be divided more than I've ever seen for Game of Thrones. Like, I've seen people who are saying this is no longer their favorite show after this episode, which is crazy.
It's just hard for me to figure that out. It's hard for me to understand that. I couldn't think of, I mean, they would have had to do some crazy shit for me to get to that point.
Right.
This seems like it didn't do anything that was that, like,
it all, like,
offensive to a fan.
Right. And when you really think about it, like, it all makes sense. Arya, the many-faced god, the Night King, the false prophecies, all of this, like, it all sort of fits together. Like, there's no reason we should expect a new Azor Ahai, because there already was an Azor Ahai. That already happened. We shouldn't be expecting history to repeat itself and for a new figure to rise and mirror Azor Ahai. There's no reason for that to happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen.
I think it was a good distraction, because then the whole time we're sitting there following what's Dany doing, what's Jon doing, we're following all the wrong people because we're in it too. We're being misled by these prophecies. We're the ones that are being misled.
Right.
And so they come out of left field and they're like, nope.
Totally.
This is not how it's going to go down. This isn't how it goes down in our world.
Oh, man. So the most anticipated episode of TV of all time is here and past at this point. And we survived, and a lot more people survived than I expected to survive this episode. I really thought it was going to be like a bloodbath. And part of me is disappointed that they didn't hurt us more, like I mentioned before. But then part of me remembers they still have 3 episodes to torture us and to kill Tyrion and to kill Daenerys or Jon, or because for all we know, the Night King has already been to King's Landing and has turned Cersei. So we may have just killed everybody here, but for all we know, Cersei's like a White Walker down there running her own necromancy in King's Landing.
Yeah, we know how time works in Game of Thrones land, so we can't be too sure about anything, really. Well,
at the slow speed that army would have taken to get from the Wall to Winterfell, the Night King could have flown to King's Landing 100 times over. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So they wouldn't even have to there doesn't even have to be any funky timelines or anything. But yeah. I just want to see where they're going to go next.
I know. My mind is like racing with just all these new, so many theories have been just killed now.
I know.
Now I'm like, what is next? Where's my mind going to go with this next?
It's going to be crazy. So yeah, we can look forward to next week. And it's going to be so insane. And, yeah, I guess let's wrap this up and we can move on to feedback. I'm sure we've got lots of great feedback about this episode, don't you think?
Yes, I am ready for the feedback.
All right.
I've been reading it on the Facebook page and everything.
Nice.
So
I've been so busy, I haven't had time yet, so I'm looking forward to reading it for the first time as we go through it here.
Stuff.
All right, stick with us, guys. We'll be right back after a short break. Make sure to check out the new Game of Thrones rap album, The Iron Throne of Microphones, by Purpose from the rap group Tragic Allies. Just go to tragicallies.bandcamp.com to get the album for free today. This track is called Golden Lions.
Slays and naysayers of tyrants, those who show defiance will die, remain silent. Thrones of iron made for gold lions, oath breakers betraying an old alliance. King slayers slays and naysayers of tyrants. Those who show defiance will die and remain silent.
Time to bend the knee.
Swear allegiance to the crown. The reason for this vow means your breathing is allowed. The treasonous are found. We never let up on a fight. Kill your family just for spite and put the heads up on a spike. It's like whoever is in us considered enemies. Our dynasty and legacy will reign throughout the centuries. Remember me, the greatest threat. You hate it but respect. A Lannister is blessed and always known to pay his debts. From Wardens of the West to us resting in the Red Keep. King of all the Andals and the first men who bled deep. Protector of the realm, even winning in defeat. A lion ain't concerned with the opinions of the sheep. We'll cut apart your manhood and feed it to the goats. And push you out a window just to keep a secret cloak. The things we do for love when defending one of ours is hard when a Lannister is sending his regards. Thrones of iron made for gold lions. Oath breakers betraying and old alliance. King slayers and naysayers of tyrants. Those who show defiance will die and remain silent. Thrones of iron made for gold lions. Oath breakers betraying an old alliance. King slayers and naysayers of tyrants. Those who show defiance will die and remain silent.
Now the range we always saw with no one there to hear. Yes, now the range we always saw and not a soul to hear. Lost on you, cast on you, cast on you, cast on you.
Lord Bryson of House Wolf. Whelp. Arya finally got to cross Beric Dondarrion off her list. I'm not too sure she wanted to kill him anymore, though. Lady Sarah of House Larkham. I've never been so nervous and pumped for an episode of Game of Thrones. I can't process what I've just seen in a good way. What beyond wonderful and breathtaking and beautiful job that Ramin Djawadi, Miguel Sapochnik, D.B. Weiss, and David Benioff and the entire crew did. I felt this episode was like the Battle of the Blackwater, Battle for the Wall, Hardhome, the Battle of the Bastards, the Loot Train Battle, and Eastwatch all combined into 1 hour and a half. It's like they put components of each battle into this episode. Loved Sansa and Tyrion acting like a married couple down in the crypts. It was so sad when Jorah fell and Daenerys was sobbing, heartbreaking. Theon sacrificing himself for Bran was perfect, and also really sad. I felt Theon redeemed himself for me when he saved Sansa from Ramsay. I was genuinely shocked when Arya stabbed the Night King. Lyanna going out like Lady OG was awesome, with a head injury nevertheless, was totally like Lyanna Mormont.
Lady Alyssa of House Ingusan. I actually thought Arya was going to die at that moment, and I'm glad I was wrong. I think that was everyone's reaction. Like, everyone was like, no! Oh! like, oh, yes! I had my reaction video, and mine was like that. I was like, oh, no! Wait, yeah! Like, totally pumped.
Lady Lucy of House Jane. I'm blown away. At first, I thought I would be disappointed if the Night King was defeated in this episode, but I wasn't at all. I thought it was perfect, although I couldn't actually breathe for a minute there when I thought Arya was dead. I thought it was full of suspense, loss, and triumph.
Lady Evgenia of House Lazarova. I have never screamed like that while watching a show before. The loudest one was when Arya kills the Night King. What a scene. And so many things made sense. Now, Bran telling Theon he is home, Beric giving his life to protect Sandor, who in turn saves Arya. Oh yeah. Melisandre meeting Arya again, and the blue eyes, and not today quote. Also, I've never felt so tense. When the episode was over, my body was hurting, and I was breathing again. The scenes in the crypt reminded me of the Battle of Blackwater with Cersei and the others hiding in the holdfast. Only this time with Sansa and her people. It felt like a season finale, and there are still 3 eps to go. What an adventure.
What an adventure. Agreed.
Totally.
In Season 1, Littlefinger puts the Valyrian steel dagger in the hands of an assassin to kill Bran Stark. It is very poetic that the same dagger finds its way into the hands of another assassin who uses it to save Brandon Stark. Alternatively, if you believe certain tinfoil theories about Bran being the Night King, it finally accomplished its task. I also love how Arya found herself in the same room with 3 people who at one time were on her list: Melisandre, Beric, and Sandor. Good point. All 3 were significant enough for Arya to at one time want to kill. All 3 Arya, for some reason, removed from her list. And now we're in this room to guide her to her ultimate destiny to kill the Night King. Wow, that's bugged out. That's crazy. Good catch, man. After their scene in the crypt, I can see Sansa and Tyrion reconciling and ending up together in a real marriage. I don't know why Ghost would be in the initial charge alongside the Dothraki and not protecting Bran. Here's hoping he finds his way back.
I feel like the whole Ghost thing feels like such an afterthought. It feels like they put him in there because fans wanted him or something. It just doesn't feel.
He doesn't seem like he actually has a role. Like, he didn't have a role. He was just on screen. Like, they added him in for a couple seconds, but there was no. Like, he didn't,
purpose.
There was no role for him, yeah.
He was the only one here in the show without a purpose in this episode.
Sir Matthew finishes off. Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper were inseparable this battle. Ice protecting its ancestral home. That's a good point. Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper side by side the whole fight. Ice virtually reconnected. Great point, Matthew. Love that.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Lord Keith S. of House Hickman. What can I say about this, but it was epic. I had a seesaw of emotions through this entire episode.
Same.
To add to the tension, my cable went out right when the dead breached the wall. Fuck that. When I finally got it back up, it was when Arya was in the library. So completely missed Lyanna Mormont's death. So later, when the Night King started to raise the fallen, I was in complete shock when I seen her.
God.
Oh, that sucks.
That's horrible.
Rewatch. Go now. Rewatch it. But by far the best and most shocking was Arya coming in at the last second. I jumped out of my seat when the Night King grabbed her. When she dropped the dagger and did that grab and stab, I cheered, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Then tripped over my son's dragon toy and laughed at irony. I love it. Can't wait for next week.
Yeah, dude, I feel your pain. In the season premiere this year, when Sam is just about to tell Jon who he is, and he's like, I wasn't a king, and Sam's like, but you were. You always were. My cable cut out right at that moment. The first episode. I was like, what the fuck? And, like, the cable box had to reboot and do all this stuff, and it was nuts. It was nuts.
Oh man, that makes my heart just pound thinking about it. I'd be legit pissed.
Yeah, totally. He also posted a GIF of Maisie Williams holding a crown, up to her head, all goofy.
All cute.
Yeah. Lord Brandon of House Ushry Hill. Now it makes you want to go back and listen to all of Mel's prophecies. And can she see past her death or only up till she dies? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Good question. Very interesting.
It's going to be a good rewatch with the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh man.
I can't wait to rewatch it with the end, with the knowing and being able to see it with the eyes of knowledge.
Yeah. Knowing the end game. Totally.
Yep. Lady Claire of House Johnson. There was just so much I don't know where to start. I never saw Arya coming. I always thought it would be Jon. I think the Night King thought so too and put Viserion between Jon and the Godswood as a defensive move. He thought he had it covered, but he didn't count on a small young woman. Neither did that giant. It was there all along in Arya's journey. We always thought it was odd that Jaqen H'ghar found himself in the Black Cells back in Season 2. He knew. He was there for Arya to lead her to the House of Black and White for training.
Damn.
In Gurm's classic riff on the Lord of the Rings... I don't know why I couldn't get that right. On the Lord of the Rings, we now move to the Scouring of the Shire, where Cersei,
Saruman, yeah,
was holed up in the Red Keep. Many of our faves survived the long night, but they are now in more danger than ever. I'm scared.
I'm scared.
I'm scared.
Right.
P.S. I'm not so sure the Night King or an equivalent is gone forever.
Dun, dun, dun. Lord Steve.
That is my new favorite word. I'm a scared.
A scared, yeah. I love it.
I'm using that forever now.
Lord Steve of House Alderfer. What's up, Steve? Jan Royce? I think not. I don't get it.
I can't think.
Oh, I don't get it. Send me an explanation, Steve. I really want to know what you're talking about here. I think not. Oh, that's what Jan says when Baelish asks him to take him back to the Eyrie. Huh.
Lord Pete of House Clark. My TV's dark and full of terrors.
Good one. Very dark and all kinds of terrors. Lady Kira of House Bergberg. I thought it was pretty amazing and well crafted, and watching the special about it on HBO made it even better. I agree. Loved how they explained that they purposefully made the episode in 3 acts and 3 different genres. Suspense for the first part with the Dothraki and all of that. Horror for Arya in the maze and the creeping, lurking zombies. And then action for the end and like the big battle sequences with the Night King and everything like that. That really put it into context for me. Very well crafted. I agree, Lady Kira. Very well crafted.
Indeed.
Amazingly done.
Lady Trogdor of House Burninator. I'd hate to be the Debbie Downer. I enjoyed the episode, but it just doesn't seem right. I'm pumped for the next ones, though.
Sorry you didn't. Sorry you're feeling it. It just doesn't seem right. That's not a fun feeling to have. Trogdor.
I think everyone was. I think everyone was pretty divided on this one. It's like pretty evenly in 3 places. Like loved it, hated it, or just don't really know how to feel about it. That's just from what I've seen on the internet.
And I can understand the views of everybody. You know, everybody has valid points, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Lady Kelsey of House Carlson, no one can kill the Night King. And now it all makes sense. That dropping of the blade sequence felt like it lasted half of the episode. I found Melisandre's talk with Arya and subsequent death absolutely beautiful. The animation on that was breathtaking. The thought of a life well lived, a purpose completed, was so bittersweet. I thought there would be more major character deaths. I guess they needed some people to kill for the next few episodes. Love your show. Thanks, Lady Kelsey. Oh, it's good to hear from you.
We are so morbid with these deaths.
Yeah.
We just didn't get enough death. It feels weird to have wanted our people to die so bad.
I know. It's really weird.
Lady Lori of House Perkins. It was incredibly intense. I reminded myself to breathe over and over again because I didn't in the loot train battle and almost passed out. Yeah, me too. The filming was beautiful, along with the score, even if it was hard to see at times. House Mormont might be gone, but they both went out heroically. R.I.P. the entire Dothraki horde.
Oh my God. Seriously.
Faux show. Melisandre was the MVP of this episode. She used the fire to help the battle and gave Arya the nudge she needed to serve her purpose. The Arya library scene was freaky as hell. I too got some very genuine Jurassic Park vibes. I actually love that Arya killed the Night King, as she is the best assassin on the show, the only one capable of sneaking up on him and catching him off guard.
Yeah. It's true, because remember when they were escaping Harrenhal and Jaqen was pulling off these seemingly impossible kills to like pinning up the guards on their own spears to make it look like they were still standing and like doing it all unseen and all unheard. It's like these super stealth skills of the Faceless Men were critical in this, for sure. Jon couldn't get past Viserion, but somehow Arya did, you know?
Where was I? I cried when Tyrion and Sansa were in the crypt, when Dany said goodbye to Jorah, and when Drogon was being attached. The feels. It makes me want to cry right now when I think about that. That part got me, like, more than anything when he cradles them.
Oh, yeah.
I hope we get more answers, because that was the big letdown for me. I need more information about the Night King. Bran's purpose. What did the spirals mean, and why now? I assume we will get those answers in another episode or in the prequel, but it did leave me feeling empty. I can get that.
Yeah.
Overall, it was great. I definitely need to watch it again before I can give it a fair rating. On to Cersei. If Jaime doesn't kill her, I'm going to lose my mind. Strangle the bitch.
Strangle the bitch.
Keep up the good work, guys. Love y'all to death.
Love you too, Lady Lori. Thanks for writing in.
Yeah.
Lord Jamo of House Maxwell. There goes my theory that Jorah would eventually become the Queenslayer by having to kill an increasingly irrational Daenerys. What an episode. That would have been crazy. Epic is the only way to describe it. Loved Lyanna taking 1-1's remaining eye. Oh, maybe it was 1-1. I don't know.
That makes sense now that I think about it.
Yeah. Arya using the little dagger drop she showcased against Brienne. The White Walker's hair flickering as Arya must have been sneaking past, but nothing could top Arya telling Sansa to stick him with the pointy end. The ladies ruled this episode.
Sure did.
Very true.
Lady Kathy of House Bridges. Freaking amazing. I was on the edge of my seat, shouting and pumping my fist. Loved when the Dothraki blades lit up. The smirk and swagger of the Night King when he thought Jon was beat. And Arya!
Arya! Lady Alicia of House Stout. Seriously, the first 10 minutes, I just wanted to jump out of my seat. The suspense was a killer. Loved the episode, although it was a bit dark. So many great scenes that I didn't see coming. It will be fixed on Blu-ray. It was HBO's streaming compression that made it extra dark, just so you know. I totally still want to see a reunion between Sansa and the Hound. Yeah, me too. Looking forward to that. I totally called it when Melisandre took off her necklace to die. I picked up the theme of purposes being fulfilled. Arya, Beric, the Dagger, the Night King, and Melisandre, to name a few. Ooh, good pickup on that. Their story had come full circle, and now their watch has ended. It's sad that the Mormont house has been wiped out along with all the Dothraki. Lyanna was a badass to the end. Man, what a scene. All the swords lit up, charging toward the dead army, and little by little, the lights going all dark. Creepy. The whole episode had me on the edge of my seat. I know some people are disappointed about the number of deaths, but just remember, we have another battle to go, and there will be blood. Oh yeah, for sure. There will be blood.
Lady Angelica Garcia of House Garcia Decker. Does anyone else think Ghost was added in post-production?
We're just saying that.
Just saying that, yeah. He is in places he doesn't belong and no one ever acknowledging him, and he looks much smaller. Is he an actual ghost?
Oh, man.
Why the hell would he be with Jorah? Enjoyed the episode, but there are a few plot holes. But I am always willing to suspend disbelief in the interest of storytelling. But I can't let the ghost thing go.
Yeah, that was pretty weird.
LOL. It really does seem like that. No one even pays attention to him the whole thing. He's just there.
Yep. Yeah.
Trying to think of anyone even...
They totally added him post-production. You know, like he didn't have a role. They may have planned for him to be there, like, oh, we'll add him here. But nobody like looked at him or interacted with him. He didn't have a role. It was just something that they could add in without having to change anything else just by changing the camera angle very slightly. So super cheap trick that they used there. But expensive also because to, create... It's a cheap trick, but it's expensive,
Right.
Sir Patrick of Hindsight, gazer of the Mirish rear view. So, the plan, before Mel showed up, was to send 100,000 warm Dothraki bodies into the pitch black night with no weapons that could harm the undead, or at least none that would be effective on horseback. Don't get me wrong, that scene was amazing and terrifying, but it made zero strategic sense. I agree. So my new headcanon is that Bran knew the true existential threat was the Dothraki horde. Knowing that Jon has seen the value of a surprise cavalry attack, he has Sam distract Jon and hamper his communication with Dany just before the war plans are discussed. The Dothraki succeeded in destroying all but 2 giants, as well as every single mammoth, snow bear, shadowcat, direwolf, rat possum, and squirrel before they're all snuffed out. Maybe snarks and grumpkins too. Ghost tore apart the ice spiders before fleeing to join Nymeria's pack. The realm is now safe, and the realm is now safe from the Dothraki and the undead horrors alike. Oh my God, he has so many.
Well done.
Yeah. I have to finally concede that Viserion was a white, not a White Walker. He looked absolutely amazing tearing shit up inside the castle, with blue flames coming out of his neck and half his lower jaw missing. Although Season 7, Episode 7 script calls him an ice dragon, quote unquote, he didn't shatter into a million ice shards, which did happen in the one ice dragon encounter that was recorded in Planetos history. Ooh, interesting. I also have to concede that my 2 ships won't be coming in. R.I.P. Tyria and Sandsor. Sandstor. Wait,
Sandstor?
why can't Sandstor happen? It could still happen. I still don't think Gendria is going to happen either. Wait, that already happened, dude.
Yeah, it's like happening.
As we've observed, the boy knows how to pound it, but he lacks technique or finesse. And also, he's way too fast. His experience with 3 prior lovers means Jack and his father bedded thousands of whores, yet never learned how to please a woman. That's hilarious. Oh. Arya is technically far more experienced than Gendry, and she has access to memories of Walder Frey. Yes, that is canon, that wearing a person's face inundates one with that person's memories. How is that canon? Show me your sources, Patrick. I think it is now safe to infer that Jorah was indeed Dany's quote-unquote someone taller. Did anyone else notice that they made their final stand inside a perimeter of corpses in the shape of a heart? I didn't notice that.
What?
Jorah died the best possible death for that character, protecting his queen. I'm glad that his final image of her was heroic and triumphant. What a romantic badass. Agreed. If Bran turns out to be the Night King, then the cat's paw dagger finally found its mark. That's a good one, too. Theon gets the ultimate validation before death. You're a good man. Not only is his morality validated, but also his manhood. Definitely. Anyone else? Anyone catch the Evil Dead reference that Mel dropped? Dead by Dawn. Didn't catch it. Did anyone else laugh out loud when the giant smacked Lyanna aside? I did, but I was also like
I did.
Shocked, like oh! You know, kind of a mixture of like a gasp and a laugh or something. Arya turns out to be the prince that was promised, as if we needed more evidence that Jaqen Hagar is secretly Rhaegar. Thanks, Sir Patrick. Always good to hear from you.
Lady Mary Patricia of House Diarigo. Arya, where'd she come from? Boom. Awesome. Dothraki flames of life flickering out one by one, chilling.
Totally.
The Unsullied being trampled by the horde of undead. Creepy. Speaking of creeping, Arya sneaking around the library. I thought for sure we were going to see Lady Stoneheart or maybe Hodor or even Stannis as a white.
Damn.
That was my initial thought, that the guy that was creeping around, the white that was creeping around, was going to be someone that she knew.
Yeah.
Or someone she recognized.
That would have been
I really
so
thought
cool.
that's where they were going.
Yeah, they missed the opportunity for that. Hodor would have been amazing.
Like, just rip my heart out. Little Lady Lyanna, epic. Zombie Little Lady Lyanna, sad. Still kind of epic, though.
Yeah. I wonder how many people little undead Lady Lyanna killed.
I don't know. I don't think she was undead for too long.
True. But still, she's Lady Lyanna Mormont, you know? She could have killed most of the remaining Unsullied or something.
Truth. She's got some spit in her. Help us, Arya. You're our only hope. A good Star Wars reference.
Yeah.
Turns out the crypts of Winterfell were not the safest place to be. Why didn't they have dragonglass weapons?
Seriously.
Love the Sansa-Tyrion team back together again. Maybe Sansa can be Tyrion's muse to get his brain back. Do you think Cersei is going to try to kill Brienne? And that's what's going to spur Jaime to kill Cersei? Huh.
Ooh.
My husband's
theory.
Interesting.
That would be crazy.
That would be interesting. Like, he almost has to choose.
Yeah. Like
That's crazy.
One girl attacks his new girl and he's like, ah! Damn.
Keep up the great coverage, guys.
Thanks for writing. Lord Stephen of House Kerndal. Poor writing, full of ex machinas, bad battle tactics, horrible lighting effects, stupid decisions by characters, inconsistency on how whites even work. But Arya and Lyanna's moments were cool. 6 out of 10. Flashy, but little substance. Okay for a mediocre show, but for one of the best shows ever, a very disappointing episode and climax to The Night King. Man, sorry you feel that way about the show, man. It's disappointing to know that so many fans are disappointed. Really sorry you feel that way. Sucks.
I hope it redeems itself in the next 3 episodes for everyone who is so upset.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Lady Steph K of House Cooper. Hey, Coopers. Where did Bran warg for half the episode? Good question.
Oh,
that's the $1 million question.
I know. So funny. Lord Anthony of House Coolam. I can't help thinking that when they get to King's Landing, or anywhere south actually, how they're going to tell the story and who's even going to believe it. They're going to bring the Night King corpse. Oh, there is no Night King corpse. He's gone.
There's a glass of water.
Maybe they could drag down the pieces of that giant body or something and be like, how do you explain this if none of it happened? Yeah, they're going to go down there and be like, all this stuff happened. And Cersei's going to be like, see, I told you none of it was real. You can't prove to me that this ever happened.
Cersei's the worst.
Yeah, totally.
Lord Ty of House Gorman. So much badassery. Aside from the Hound, who was quivering like a bitch-made motherfucker.
Bitch-made motherfucker.
My favorite sound clip. Insert here. Everyone else was giving it their all. A few probing questions, then I'm cutting myself off because I could analyze this episode forever. Jon at the end confronts the undead Viserion head-on. Do you think he was embracing his Targaryen blood, hoping he couldn't be burned, or was he giving up?
Damn.
Giving up is not like him. And Arya with the knife drop. Is she this skilled of a warrior because of her faceless man training? I think so.
I don't know.
If so,
I would say giving up is not outside of his character. Sansa had to continue to keep, make him keep fighting for the North. He quit the Night's Watch and was just done with everything. Had given up basically until Sansa convinced him to keep fighting. So it's possible that he was giving up.
It seems to me the way that he was barreling in, like he was going to make some kind of big move or something. To me, it looked like he was going to just fucking go for it. Dart out or something, because he was just he was getting ready to pump himself up.
It wasn't
that's how I took it.
Yeah, it wasn't like an "I've given up" yell. It was like a battle yell, So hopefully he wasn't giving up.
I think he was pumping himself up to fucking make some kind of move, just run for it or just say "fuck, I die or I don't." Boom.
Yeah.
Or else he could have just pussied out and been like, "I'm done." I'm done with this.
Totally.
And Arya with the knife drop. Is she this skilled of a warrior because of her faceless man training? If so, how in the world was Jaqen H'ghar ever captured to begin with when they met? Maybe he was letting himself get taken to the wall to take out the Night King himself?
Oh.
I wonder if we've seen all Arya has to offer or if she has more faceless man heroics in store for us. Thanks. Addictively good podcast.
Ooh, addictively good. Glad you like it.
Lord
Ty.
Oh, I also wanted to add that I think Sansa calling all the people in the crypt useless will be her undoing. You're the Lady of the North, and you're saying that to your people. Meanwhile, Dany is out risking it all to fight the undead. Now that everyone has seen that and how Sansa responded, Dany will win the hearts of Northerners. The North will remember what she did for them.
Damn. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. What do you think?
Well, and Dany's never had really battle experience or anything either, and she is still out there, so it can't really be Sansa doesn't know how to fight.
Right. Yeah, Dany's never fought yet. She's out there riding a dragon. Sansa's doing nothing down in the crypt, and Dany's out there putting it all on the line to protect Sansa. God damn. Yeah, good point.
Basically just telling all the Northerners that they're useless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
all
ridiculous.
The girls down there.
Thanks for writing, Lord Ty. Always good to hear from you, brother. Lady Amanda of House Massey. What an episode. The suspense, the battle, the tsunami of whites. I really don't know how anyone in the front lines survived that. But wow, was that an epic fucking episode or what? Yeah, I don't know how anyone up in the front lines would have survived either. I was just thinking everybody was getting wiped out. I was literally in the fetal position for 3/4 of the episode. So many things that made me hype. The slow-mo of everyone pre-battle, when Melisandre set the Dothraki Eryx on fire, when Daenerys Dracarys the Night King, when Jorah came through to save Daenerys, rip Jorah, When Theon came through to save Bran, I still had my doubts Reek was going to make an appearance. Ooh, that would have been so fucked up if Reek made an appearance.
Oh my gosh.
Cowered at the Night King, and that would have sucked. I'm glad that he didn't. When Arya killed the Night King. Hashtag knife drop. Credit to Lord Ty of House Gorman on that hashtag. Good timing, since we just read his comment.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just learned that.
The fact that we didn't lose everyone but Cersei in the battle. Pretty much the whole episode. One thing I am still left wondering is what the hell happened with the Dothraki? I wish I knew a little bit more of the battle plan since I was left a bit confused by the charge and retreat technique they went with, especially since they didn't seem to have dragonglass Erics. Also, Sir Duncan, your mugs are the best. Can't wait for this podcast. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And today I'm drinking from the Zyrtec mug with a nose built onto it. So if you're drinking hot water or hot tea or coffee or something, condensation forms inside the nose and it starts dripping like a runny nose.
Yummy.
For Zyrtec allergy stuff. Thank you so much for writing, Lady Amanda.
Lady Sarah of House Hargett. Go Sarah. Sarah's with an H.
Yeah, and she made it this time. Last week, her feedback was just a little too late and I couldn't get it in. So I'm glad she made it this time.
I'm making sure that my Raven is on time this time.
Yeah, there you go.
Since sleeping after this episode is no longer going to happen. I want to say a big thank you to you both. My husband is not caught up yet, and my boss has made a no Game of Thrones talk rule.
Oh, man.
I need someone... That's like the worst. I need someone to talk about episodes when they happen. You have saved me so much money on therapy.
Well, you're welcome. That's what we're here for.
Yes. This episode was heart-pumping the whole way through. Never a break from action. I'm sure I stopped breathing in the library with Arya. I am with you on that one. I love that scene. I love the subtle moments and Tyrion and Sansa in the crypts. And Tyrion and Sansa in the crypts were golden. Did anyone get a cold chill from Missy down there? I get it. She's a stranger in a strange land, but don't be rude to your host. Miss Andy?
Miss Anda, yeah. But, I mean...
Oh, girl.
Was she really rude, though? Or was she more like, you're being a bitch? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I think she was just like, hey, let's take it down a notch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the way she said it was kind of like, no.
Yeah, she was, a little bit rude about it, but Sansa was being rude as well. So
Sansa was freaking people out.
Yeah.
In the first 10 minutes when we saw the horse riding up and we saw Melisandre, I said, oh, this one's going to be interesting. As usual, it did not disappoint. I have a few questions and I would appreciate some closure, or as much as possible with this show. One, what in the biscuits was Bran doing this whole time?
Biscuits!
What biscuits? Two, do you think someone died that we didn't see on screen?
Maybe.
Three, why does Varys have so few moments in these last few episodes?
Ooh, he's going to be important coming up. That's
why. That's what I think. And lastly, 4, with the Night King dead and the Army of the Dead finished, what is Jon's goal now? I don't think he wants the throne. He just wants Dany. But will she want him now? Moment of silence for the mayor of the friend zone. We will never see his like again. Thank you again, and I leave you with this. Who is going to clean up all the dead bodies everywhere? The logistics are baffling. Valar Dohaeris, all men must serve.
Right, yeah, they thought there was a lot of bodies after the Battle of the Bastards. They had no idea. Or first, all the bodies from Stannis' fight against the Boltons that left the Winterfell littered with corpses. And then there's all the bodies from the Battle of the Bastards that left Winterfell littered with corpses, interior and outside the walls. Now there's this, where there's just bodies just everywhere. Woo!
Winterfell must have a plan in place, a system in place by now for all this.
Totally.
They're like, okay, let's...
Yep. Lady Annika from real Westeros. Westeros is the name of my hometown in Sweden. You pronounce it almost exactly like Westeros. It's Vasteras. It's an honor to live here right now. Can't wait for the next episode. I'm so excited. I have to crawl up from bed at 3 a.m. when the episode airs in Sweden. The things you do for love, right? With like a smiley face with like a little sweat mark. Like, thanks for a great podcast. You guys have helped me a lot through a lot of gym hours and kilometers running. Ooh, you know about that, Lady Sarah, or Princess Sarah.
I'm a runner too.
Yeah. The commute to my boyfriend who lives an hour and a half away gets much easier. Glad we can help you with that commute there. That's always, fun to have something good to listen to on a good
I listen
commute.
to the podcast when I run too. I'm with you on that.
Totally. Lord Joel from House Erickson. Hey guys, I've been listening for a long time and have always wanted to write in, but never got around to it. But after this episode, I've been so back and forth with how I feel about it, I had to write in. Haha. I have so many opinions about this episode, but my main two are: 1, the Night King was way too simple to kill. I really felt like Bran was going to have to do some serious ability flex to kill the Night King with a vision or something. Plus, with how the dead have been a threat since season 1, it felt like they deserved a 2-episode battle, at the least. Yeah, I would have thought that the long night would have lasted longer than just one night. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not
bigger than like an extra long episode.
Yeah, like it was really just one night and not even an extra long one, like maybe it felt long because of the fight, but it wasn't really like a long night. It was just one night,
Yeah.
2, the show overhyped this so much. We felt like we were going to be traumatized after this episode with the losses we'd be watching. Yet we lost quite a bit of characters, but I don't think any of them were the top tier characters. I felt like we'd lost at least one, like we'd lose at least one main character. And I get that it's a TV show and we have to have characters survive, which leads me to my biggest argument that I have with shows and movies of all time. Don't put your characters in unsurvivable situations. The fact that half of our cast was on the front lines and almost all of them survived, much less longer than the immediate impact of the Walker wave that slammed them, is ridiculous. I'm really waiting to
I can agree with that.
Sure. I'm really waiting to see how these final 3 episodes play out, but I feel they let us down the way they did. But if they let us down the way they did this episode, I'm worried with how they're going to finish this amazing show. I'm done. Sorry for the giant message. It wasn't too long. Thank you for writing, Joel. Yeah, I'm sorry you're feeling conflicted as well, but hopefully they'll wrap it up in a way that everybody enjoys.
What's up, everybody? It is Johnny Stitches, Archmaester of the Luminescent Citadel of the Siren Isle. Hey man, thank you so much for having me on the live show. Those things are so fun. If you guys haven't checked those out, they're just amazing. So I was listening to that, and I always kind of hate listening to myself, but I started thinking, so I wanted to call in and say the Hound's shell shockness and how he was underutilized in the episode. I was talking about that on the live stream, and I'm sure you guys are going to bring that up in today's show. But it got me thinking more and more. I think he's going to have to face his fear of fire and like running in his cowardice in his fight with the mountain. And that's the whole reason, for the way they set him up in this one. That's just my thoughts on that. Just kind of curious. If y'all might have already brought it up and talked about it, but if not, just thought I'd throw that in here in the feedback. And just curious, man, what do you guys think about the Hound? Do you think that he's gonna walk through the flames to impel the mountain, or go through a gorge of fire to tackle the zombie and save people? I'm so excited to see what they're gonna do with the Hound. I love the Hound, and I felt a little bad because how bad I was harping on what they did with him last night. So yeah. Again, Duncan, Rachel, hi Rachel. It's so wonderful what you guys do here, and hello to the special guest from the past. Hope the future's still there. And thanks so much for coming on, giving microphones and giving your what I assume is awesome feedback. So yeah, and hopefully I'll see you guys on live stream this Sunday. Get the homes later.
Archmaester Stitches, good to hear from you, brother. Looking forward to having you back on the live stream this Sunday. Yeah, I feel you about the Hound. Hopefully we'll get to see him pull off some badass shit coming up. Talk to you soon, homie. All right, thanks for writing in, everybody. Always great to hear from you guys every week, and sorry to the people who didn't like this episode very much, and to the other people who really enjoyed it, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
I've traveled to a bunch of random places and random countries. But as a Midwestern guy, I recently have been falling in love with what the more rugged parts of America have to offer to all of us before they're gone. TEA MAGE Productions and Powers Media House presents Beautiful America, a musical documentary series with all original content. Explore the Southwest of America and indulge in some places you've heard of and plenty more that you certainly have not. Cooking under the stars and below freezing temps of Death Valley. 4K drone footage of one of the most insane monoliths on Earth. Driving in abandoned mines, cliffs, canyons, and wild times. Check it out. TEA MAGE Productions on Facebook and YouTube. That's TEA MAGE Productions. Beautiful America.
All right, that's our show, episode 114. Thanks for listening, everybody, and a big thanks to Princess Sarah of House von Daltron for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun. This was like the best episode to have been on, really. For me, at least.
Well, I'm glad you made it. And a huge thanks to John Bailey, the epic voice guy from the Emmy-nominated Honest Trailers, for announcing our show. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast or patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both at gameofmicrophones.com.
Doing some online shopping? Go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases.
Any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of GOM. We'd like to thank our patrons, Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Lady Candace of House Tews, Lady Teri of House Theodore, Lord Jeff of House Allen, Sirenicide, Lord John of House Grilz, Luke the Low Duke, Lord Jeremiah of House Carpenter, Tarot Spirit, and Lord Bryson of House Wolf. We love you guys and appreciate your patronage. Thank you so much. And make sure to check out Sirenicide, the serialized horror drama podcast featuring me and Archmaester Stitches. Go to sirenicide.com and download it wherever you get your podcasts.
Next, we'll be covering Season 8, Episode 4. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on the air.
If you'd like to call, you can always reach us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOMpodcast.
Imp slap! You can always also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. Likes, comments, and shares are appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're on Tumblr too at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening. Valar Morghulis.
Valar Dohaeris. Well met, giant killers and honorable warriors, and welcome to Game of Microphones. This is, fuck. What did I was scrambling to type it and I fucked it up.
At least you didn't keep reading it and sound.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of.
I know. I was
sad.
I don't know. I don't want to say I'm disappointed that we didn't lose more people, but I'm almost kind of disappointed that they didn't hurt us more than they did. You know what I mean? I was expecting to be really, really suffering as a result of this episode.
Well, we kept hearing it's going to be Red Wedding status, and Red Wedding was shocking. It was it was jarring. Couldn't stop. I still get emotional over that freaking episode.
Mm-hmm, totally.
And so this was kind of it was appropriate death. We're okay. We don't like that they died, but we're okay with it because they died as heroes.
Right. Sam is like on the ground, frozen like the Hound, basically. They baited us with Jamie because Brienne gets knocked over like right off the bat in the fight. You know, the whites are just pouring all over. And she always has the most like animalistic, guttural, like growling and battle cries and stuff. It's so epic. Yeah. So she's like, gets knocked down and the whites are all over and Jamie slays him and like, he's kind of standing there for a second, like looking down, like, yeah, you know, I helped you. And I'm thinking, no, they're about to kill Jamie. But nope, they did the same thing with Ed and killed him instead. Mm-hmm. In the distance, you can hear the hissing and growling of the dead. Ugh. Dothraki, Morghulis, you know, they're going to die. The compression of HBO and everything made the episode, screwed up the episode basically, and it didn't look like it was intended to look. If I would be really upset if I worked at HBO and the moment comes and the product you've been working on for so long looks dark and not the way that they intended it. It's really unfortunate that happened.
Well, yeah, and it's it's like the simplest thing that kind of ruined the whole episode for a lot of people, it seems, and that sucks. Yeah,
it sucks. Super sucks. I noticed it right off the bat too. The first couple shots, I could tell that like the way that I was receiving the signal, it was hyper compressed and really pixelated. When Tyrion was walking through the courtyard, I remember thinking, what the fuck? Why does it look like this? You know, like it looks like 480p, you know, damn it. But, you know, whatever. And Jamie, you know, everybody's watching in the distance as we get this amazing sequence where we can see all of the, like a line of torches in the distance swinging around as they're riding through the chaos and fighting. And one by one, all of these blades are being extinguished until the last one goes out. And we're seeing all these different characters' reactions to this. Mm-hmm. And importantly, I think it zooms in on Jamie's face and Jamie's reaction, because Jamie is was the person who, like I mentioned, learned from firsthand experience just how tough the Dothraki are. So he's watching in horror as this invincible force from his perspective is just erased right before his eyes. It's a good storytelling device where we don't see the threat. It reminds me of like, what was that movie? Cloverfield? Oh,
I've never seen that, but is that it's like the fog or something? Or what
there's
is
like
it?
some alien creature or something, and like, but you only get like a little glimpse of like its leg, or, you know, like every once in a while, like, you know,
so your imagination can be scarier than what might actually be there.
Exactly. And that's what's happening here. Like, I'm imagining ice spiders and all kinds of crazy shit that they couldn't afford, apparently.
You want your ice spiders. It was an ice spider, okay?
I want ice spider.
It was an ice spider.
It's just super sad. Like, those were her blood riders. Remember that moment she had sitting on Drogon where she's like, you know, traditionally a cow will choose 3 blood riders. I choose you all. And they're all like super pumped. They all just got fucking murdered.
They loved her too. That's
right. That shows what dedication they had to her, riding into the unknown, like to fight in this circumstance, like into the darkness with no idea what's out there. That's dedication.
And before that, riding across the sea, right? I mean, they followed her straight to, man.
Yeah,
it breaks my heart.
Yeah, as horrible as it is, it's really beautiful. You know, and you can hear the scrambling footsteps in the darkness as the undead are running towards them. So it's showing Sansa and Arya freaking out. And I was thinking at this point, oh, man, I think Sansa's starting to get the gravity of the whole situation. Like, she's starting to see what a threat the undead are. She's starting to see what a force the dragons are. I was thinking maybe she'll like chill out with Dany, the whole Dany thing, you know, realize that like it's all working out the way it's supposed to, hopefully. And, but nope, we learned she's still on that bullshit in the crypt. We find out in a little bit, you know? And this is a great reference to season 1. Episode 1 or episode 2, when Jon gives Arya a needle and she's like, well, how do I use it? Right? Mm-hmm. You know, you want to say it.
I do. Stick them with the pointy end. So cute.
Yeah, I love that. And so 3 of our heroes are all taken down here at the same time, basically, as Jamie is tackled and has whites on top of him. And then Tormund is tackled and has whites crawling all over him. And then Sam is tackled and has whites all over him. And all at the same time, 3 of our heroes are down and like in serious danger. And Sam is freaking out, doing his like Sam stuff. And so Grey Worm is just beasting out on all these dudes, just slaughtering like all kinds of undead creatures everywhere.
The Double D's knew that she was going to be the one that killed him for like 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years ago they said they so that's pretty crazy.
And they nailed it. They nailed it with all of the writing, everything. I buy it. I like it.
Yeah, I thought it worked out really well too. And it makes sense because the Night King would be the single greatest enemy of the many-faced god. The many-faced god doles out death. And the Night King is out there undoing all of his work, bringing all these dead people back to life. And you know that must really piss off the many-faced god. So so Arya is the perfect person to finish this job, to do the job for him. The 2 most horrible things he can imagine: the undead army and fire. He's like, fuck this. This is like so much worse than the Battle of Blackwater Bay. It's just fire at that point. Fuck, goddamn. Theon tells Bran that they've lit the trench. AKA our defenses are collapsing. This is not good. You know, like if they've lit the trench, that means that the undead are right outside the walls.
Right
basically.
outside the
So that is bad news. And he feels this is his moment to like sort of confide in Bran, right? It's like, Bran, I just want you to know, I wish the things I did, you know, and Bran cuts him off. Everything you did brought you to where you are now, where you belong, home. You know, what a powerful moment between the 2 of them, right? Like,
he needed to hear that.
like,
Theon has been needing that, you know, validation for so long.
Yeah, exactly. This is the final piece in his validation puzzle. His ravens fly right up to the Night King. But first, they're flying along, and one of the dragons comes swooping by, and they kind of like fly right through the dissipating flames. Looked so cool. Again, another amazing moment of cinematography in this episode. Just a fantastic looking episode. And so they fly right up to the Night King, and he's just lurking there on Viserion's back. We get this gnarly shot looking upwards at him, and he's like bouncing a little bit, and his face is blurry. And then into the foreground of the camera comes his hand as he reaches down. Were his eyes
like warged? When I saw it the second time, it looked like his eyes were all warged like Bran's or something.
Ooh, interesting.
That freaked me out.
I didn't catch that. It's entirely possible. He does seem to be able to tap into the Werewood network as well, the ice Wi-Fi. So, yeah, it's possible. And at first I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, he does these hand gestures. Raising his arms makes the dead, do his rise. I guess pointing his hand like that just makes them do whatever he wants. So this is when the dead start like plopping themselves onto the fire barrier to create like a body mountain, pathway.
Like a bridge thing.
Yeah, body bridge. And I'm like, oh my God, this is hardcore. But that shot looking at the Night King with his hand in the foreground and his face all blurry was just like the most gangster shot.
The sound was all muffled and...
Yeah, so good. Yes. So many just epic moments in this episode. And Melisandre, brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes. And blue eyes, and Arya's thinking, and we know that the whites have blue eyes, and that the White Walkers have blue eyes, and that the Night King has blue eyes. And man, that she'd shut many eyes. She has the opportunity to shut many blue eyes here.
All the eyes.
All the blue eyes. Except Tormund. Yeah, exactly. I've always had blue eyes.
I've always had blue eyes.
And Jon, he would have said, will your people fight for you when they see you won't fight for them? But in this case, yeah, they will, because they're powered by necromancy. So the Night King just walks off and they keep fighting. Yeah, my heart shatters as Jon sees Sam, but has to leave him to go for Bran. I couldn't believe it. I was like yelling at my TV, like, you have to save Sam. You can't leave Sam, freaking out. fight. And what the fuck was Theon thinking here?
Like, what could he have possibly thought was gonna he was gonna win with his little dragon glass?
Well, I mean,
spear, whatever it was.
Maybe he could have won with the dragon glass spear, but he points it right at him, runs at him, and
runs from however
telegraphing the whole time. I'm gonna thrust this at you. I'm gonna thrust this at you. I'm gonna thrust this at you. And all the Night King has to do is just parry it, and he just grabs it and snaps it with his hand, and then just brutally stabs right through Theon's gut. And just the metal pokes out of his armored back plate and it's just dripping blood and just drops to the ground. And woof, it's pretty poetic that the cat's paw dagger was originally assigned to kill Bran, but ends up coming full circle and saving his life with Arya. Mm-hmm. It's also poetic that he gave it to Arya when he was first reunited with her. Right away, in the Godswood, at this tree. And here it is, back with her to defend him at this tree when he needs it. And it's interesting also, Littlefinger may have been the one who initially put this dagger in play. Mm-hmm. It was his dagger, as far as we know, right? Mm-hmm. So, in a way, this victory would have been impossible without Littlefinger.
Without fucking Littlefinger.
Littlefinger saving the day from the grave.
By Peter fucking Baelish.
Right? That's so funny. Maybe the best thing he ever did was introducing this dagger to the to the play. Littlefinger being Littlefinger ended up saving the day. Without Littlefinger, the Night King would have won.
There would have not been chaos. No ladder.
Yeah.
Valar Morghulis.
Valar Dohaeris. Valar Dohaeris.